A reading of William Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice. Act 1, Scene 1. Venice. A street. Enter Antonio, Salarino, and Salanio conversing. Antonio looks distraught.
In truth, I know not why I am so sad. It wearies me. You say it wearies you. But how I caught it, found it, or came by it, what stuff 'tis made of, whereof it is born, I am to learn. And such a want wit sadness makes of me, that I have much ado to know myself.
Your mind is tossing on the ocean, believe me, sir. Had I such venture forth, the better part of my affections would be with my hopes abroad. I should be still plucking the grass to know where sits the wind, peering in maps, reports, and piers and roads, and every object that might make me fear misfortune to my ventures, out of doubt would make me sad.
My wind cooling my broth would blow me to an ague, when I thought what harm a wind too great at sea might do.
Believe me, no.
Why then, you are in love.
Fie.
Not in love, neither. Then let us say you are sad because you are not merry.
Enter their friends Bassanio, Lorenzo, Leonardo, and Gratiano.
Here comes my lord Bassanio.
Good morrow, my lords.
Good signors, both, when shall we laugh? Say when. You grow exceeding strange, must it be so?
We'll make our leisures to attend on yours.
Exit Salarino and Salanio.
My lord Bassanio, since you have found Antonio, we too will leave you. But at dinner time, I pray you have in mind where we must meet.
You look not well, Signor Antonio. You have too much respect upon the world. They lose it that do buy it with much care. Believe me, you are marvelously changed.
I hold the world but as the world, Gratiano. A stage where every man must play a part, and mine a sad.
Oh, let me play the fool. With mirth and laughter let old wrinkles come, and yet my liver rather heat with wine than my heart cool with mortifying groans. Why should a man whose blood is warm within sit like his grandsire cut in alabaster, sleep when he wakes and creep into the jaundice by being peevish? I tell thee what, Antonio, I love thee, and it is my love that speaks. There are a sort of men whose visages do cream and mantle like a standing pond, and do a wilful stillness entertain, with purpose to be dressed in an opinion of wisdom, gravity, profound conceit, and who should say, I am Sir Oracle, and when I open my lips, let no dog bark. Oh, my Antonio. I do know of these that therefore only are reputed wise for saying nothing, when I am very sure if they should speak, would almost damn those ears which hearing them would call their brothers fools. I'll tell thee more of this another time. But fish not with this melancholy bait, for this fool gudgeon, this opinion. Come, good Lorenzo, fare ye well a while. I'll end my exhortation after dinner.
With a sweep of his hat, Gratiano bows and exits with Lorenzo. Bassanio nods to Leonardo and he leaves too.
Farewell.
Gratiano speaks an infinite deal of nothing, more than any man in Venice.
Well, that you today promised to tell me of?
'Tis not unknown to you, Antonio, how much I have disabled mine estate by something showing a more swelling port than my faint means would grant continuance. Nor do I make moan to be abridged from such a noble rate, but my chief care is to come fairly off from the great debts where in my time something too prodigal hath left me gaged. To you, Antonio, I owe the most in money and in love, and from your love I have a warranty to unburden all my plots and purposes, how to get clear of all the debts I owe.
I pray you, good let me, and if it stand, as you yourself still do, within the eye of honor, be assured my purse, my person, my extremest means lie all unlocked to your occasions.
Belmont is a lady richly left, and she is fair, and fairer than that word of wondrous virtues. Sometimes from her eyes I did receive fair, speechless messages. Her name is Portia. Nothing undervalued to Cato's daughter, Brutus Portia, nor is the wide world ignorant of her worth. For the four winds blow from every coast renowned suitors. Oh, my Antonio, had I but the means to hold a rival place with one of them, I have a mind presages me such thrift that I should questionless be fortunate.
Well, thou knowest that all my fortunes are at sea, neither have I money nor commodity to raise a present sum. Therefore, go forth. Try what my credit can in Venice do. Shall be raked, and even though to the uttermost, to furnish thee to Belmont to fair Portia. Go presently inquire, and so will I, where money is, and I no question make to have it of my trust or for my sake.
Exit. Scene 2. Belmont, otherwise known as the Kingdom of Italy. A room in Portia's house. Portia sits in her room, looking at a picture of her father. Nerissa enters, out of breath as she has been looking all over for her. She's a bit exasperated. Stephano and Balthazar are keeping her company.
By my troth, Nerissa, my little body is aweary of this great world.
You would be, sweet madam, if your miseries were in the same abundance as your good fortunes are. And yet, from what I see, they are as sick and suffer it with too much as they that starve with nothing. It means it is no mean happiness, therefore, to be settled in this mean. Superfluity comes sooner by white hairs, but complacently lives longer.
If to do were as easy as to know what were good to do, chapels had been churches and poor men's cottages, princes' palaces. But this reasoning is not in the fashion to choose me a husband. Oh me, the word choose. I may neither choose whom I would, nor refuse whom I dislike. So is the will of a living daughter curbed by the will of a dead father. Is it not hard, Nerissa, that I cannot choose one nor refuse one?
Your father was ever virtuous, and holy men at their death have good inspirations. Therefore the lottery, that he hath devised in 3 chests of gold, silver and lead. Therefore, who chooses his meaning chooses you. Will, no doubt, never be chosen by any rightly, but one who shall rightly love. But what warmth is there in your affection toward any of these princely suitors that are already come?
I pray thee, overname them, and as thou namest them, I will describe them, and according to my description, level at my affection.
Nerissa, flanked with Balthazar and Stephano, all bring Portia to the balcony that overlooks the estate. Sprawled out below, helping themselves to food and wine, are suitors. It is as if all the men in the world have come to Belmont to win Portia's hand. And money.
First, there is the French lord.
Aye, that's a colt indeed, for he doth nothing but talk of his horse, and he makes it a great appropriation to his own good parts, that he can shoe him himself. I am much afeard, my lady, his mother played false with a smith.
Then there is the Count Palatine.
No, he doth nothing but frown, as who should say, if you would not have me choose. He hears merry tales and he smiles not. I fear he will prove the weeping philosopher when he grows old, being so full of unmannerly sadness in his youth. I'd rather be married to a death's head with a bone in his mouth than to either of these. God defend me from these two.
How say you by the French lord?
Oh, God.
Lebrun.
Oh, God made him, and therefore let him pass for a man. In truth, I know it is a sin to be a mocker, but he...
Then what say you then to Falconbridge, the young Baron of England?
How oddly he is suited. I think he bought his doublet in Italy, his round hose in France, his bonnet in Germany, and his behavior everywhere.
What think you of the Scottish lord, his neighbor?
That he hath a neighborly charity in him, for he borrowed a box of the ear of the Englishman and swore he would pay him again when he was able. I think the Frenchman became his surety and sealed under it for another.
How like you the young German, the Duke of Saxony's nephew?
Oh, very vilely in the morning when he is sober, and most vilely in the afternoon when he is drunk.
If you should offer to choose the right casket, you should refuse to perform your father's will if you should refuse to accept him.
Therefore, for fear of the worst, I pray thee, set a deep glass of the Rhenish wine on the contrary casket. For if the devil be within and that temptation without, I know he will choose it. And I will do anything ere be married to a sponge.
They exit. Scene 3, Venice, a market. Enter Bassanio and Shylock, who is pricing out meat.
3,000 ducats. Well.
Aye, sir. For 3 months.
3 months. Well.
For the which, as I told you, Antonio shall be bound.
Antonio shall become bound. Well.
May you stead me? Will you pleasure me? Shall I know your answer?
3,000 ducats for 3 months, and Antonio bound.
Your answer to that.
Antonio was a good man.
You heard anything to any imputation to the contrary?
Oh, no. My meaning in saying he is a good man is to have you understand that he is sufficient, yet his means are in question. He hath a ship bound to Tripolis, another to the Indies. I understand, moreover, upon the Rialto, he hath a third at Mexico, a fourth for England, and other ventures he hath squandered abroad. But ships are but boards, sailors but men. There be land rats, water thieves, and land thieves. I mean, pirates. And then there is the peril of waters, winds, and rocks. The man is notwithstanding sufficient. 3,000 ducats, I think. I may take his bond.
Be assured you may.
May I speak with Antonio?
If it please you, dine with us.
Yes, to smell pork, to eat of the habitation which your prophet the Nazarite conjured the devil into. I will buy with you, sell with you, talk with you, walk with you, and so following, but I will not eat with you, drink with you, nor pray with you. What news on the Rialto? Who is he comes here?
Enter Antonio.
This is Signor Antonio.
How like a fawning publican he looks. I hate him, for he is Christian, but more of that, in low simplicity, he lends out money gratis and brings down the rate of usance here with us in Venice. If I can catch him once upon the hip, I will feed fat the ancient grudge I bear him. He hates our sacred nation, and he rails, even there where merchants most do congregate, on me, my bargains, and my well-won thrift, which he calls interest. Cursed be my tribe if I forgive him.
Shylock, do you hear?
I am debrading of my present store, and by the near guess of my memory, I cannot instantly raise up the gross of full 3,000 ducats. What of that? Tubal, a wealthy Hebrew of my tribe, will furnish me. But soft, how many months did you desire? Rest you fair, good senor. Your worship was the last man in our mouths.
Shylock, although I neither lend nor borrow by taking nor by giving of excess, yet to supply the ripe wants of my friend, I'll break a custom. Is he yet possessed of how much he would?
3,000 ducats.
And for 3 months.
I had forgot. 3 months. You told me so. Well then, your bond, and let me see. But hear you. We thought you said you neither lend nor borrow upon advantage.
I do never use it.
When Jacob grazed his uncle Laban's sheep, this Jacob from our holy Abram was, and as his wise mother wrought in his behalf, the third possessor, he was the third.
And what of him? Did he take interest?
No, not take interest, not, as you would say, directly interest. Mark what Jacob did. When Laban and himself were compromised that all the eanlings which were streaked and pied should fall as Jacob's hire, the ewes, being rank, in the end of autumn turned to the rams. And when the work of generation was between these woolly breeders in the act, the skillful shepherd peeled me certain wands, and in the doing of the deed of kind, he stuck them up before the fulsome ewes, who then, conceiving, did an eating time, fall partly colored lambs, and those were Jacob's. This was a way to thrive, and he was blessed. And thrift is blessing, if men steal it not.
This was a venture, sir, that Jacob served for, a thing not in his power to bring to pass, but swayed and fashioned by the hand of heaven. Was this inserted to make interest good? Or is your gold and silver ewes and rams?
I cannot tell. I make it breed as fast. But note me, Signor.
Mark you this, Bassanio. The devil can cite scripture for his purpose. An evil soul producing holy witnesses like a villain with a smiling cheek, a goodly apple rotten at the heart. Oh, what a goodly outside falsehood hath.
They have made their way to Shylock's office, which is occupied by his servant Launcelot. Launcelot brings Shylock a paper and stands on the other side of the room. Shylock sits, puts on his glasses, and reads it over.
3,000 ducats, 'tis a good round sum. Three months from 12, then let me see the rate.
Well, Shylock, shall we be beholding to you?
Signor Antonio, many a time and oft in the Rialto you have rated me about my monies and my usances. I have borne it with a patient shrug, for sufferance is the badge of all our tribe. You call me misbeliever, cutthroat dog, and spit upon my Jewish gabardine, and all for use of that which is mine own. Well then, it now appears you need my help. Go to then, you come to me and you say, Shylock, we would have monies. You say so. You that did void your riem upon my beard and foot me as you spurn a stranger, cur over your threshold. Monies is your suit. What should I say to you? Should I not say, hath a dog money? Is it possible a cur can lend 3,000 ducats? Or shall I bend low and in a bondman's key with bated breath and whispering humbleness say this? Fair sir, you spit on me. On Wednesday last, you spurned me such a day. Another time you called me dog. And for these courtesies, I'll lend you thus such monies.
I am as like to call thee so again, to spit on thee again, to spurn thee too. If thou wilt lend this money, lend it not as to thy friends, for when did friendship take a breed for barren metal of his friend? But lend it rather to thine enemy, who, if he break, thou mayest with better face exact the penalty.
Why, look you how you storm. I would be friends with you and have your love. Forget the shames that you have stained with me. Supply your present wants and take no doit of usance for my monies, and you'll not hear me. This is kind I offer.
This were kindness.
This kindness will I show. Go with me to a notary. Seal me there your single bond, and in a merry sport, if you repay me, not on such a day, in such a place, such sum or sums as expressed in the condition, let the forfeit be nominated for an equal pound of your fair flesh, be cut off and taken in what part of your body pleaseth me.
Antonio and Bassanio look at Shylock in shock. Shylock doesn't move an inch. Finally, Antonio nods.
Content in faith. I'll seal to such a bond, and say there's much kindness in the Jew.
You shall not seal to such a bond for me. I'll rather live in my necessity.
Oh, I fear not, man. I will not forfeit it. Within these 2 months, that's a month before the bond expires, I do expect return of thrice 3 times the value of this bond.
Father Abram, what these Christians are, whose own hard dealing teaches them suspect the thoughts of others. Pray you tell me this. If he should break his day, what should I gain by the exaction of the forfeiture? A pound of man's flesh taken from a man is not so estimable, profitable neither as flesh of muttons, beefs, or goats. I say to buy his favor. I extend this friendship, if you will take it. So if not, adieu. And for my love, I pray you wrong me not.
Yes, Shylock, I will seal unto this bond.
Then meet me forthwith at the notary's. Give him direction for this merry bond, and I will go and purse the ducats straight. See to my house, left in the fearful guard of an unthrifty knave, and presently I will be with you.
Hie thee, gentle Jew.
Shylock exits.
The Hebrew will turn Christian. He grows kind.
I like not fair terms in a villain's mind.
Come on. In this there can be no dismay. My ships come home a month before the day.
Antonio exits. Bassanio, after some hesitation, follows after his friend. Act 2, Scene 1, Venice, a street. Enter Launcelot.
Certainly my conscience will serve me to run from this Jew, my master, the fiend at mine elbow, and tempts me, saying to me, Gobbo, Launcelot, Gobbo, good Launcelot, or good Gobbo, good Launcelot, Gobbo, use your legs, take the start, run away. My conscience says, no, take heed, honest Launcelot, take heed. Honest Gobbo, or, as aforesaid, honest Launcelot Gobbo, do not run, scorn running with thy heels. Well, the more courageous fiend bids me pack. Via, says the fiend. Away, says the fiend. For the heavens rouse up a brave mind, says the fiend, and run. Well, my conscience, hanging about the neck of my heart, says very wisely to me, my honest friend Launcelot, being an honest man's son, or rather an honest woman's son, for indeed my father did something smack, something grow too. He has a kind of taste. Well, my conscience says, Launcelot, budge not. Budge, says fiend. Say I, you counsel well. To my conscience. You counsel well, fiend. Say I, you counsel well to be ruled by my conscience. I should stay with the Jew, my master, who, God bless the mark, is a kind of devil. And to run away from the Jew, I should be ruled by the fiend, who, saving irreverence, is the devil himself. Certainly, the Jew is the very devil incarnal, and in my conscience is but a kind of hard conscience to offer to counsel me to stay with the Jew. The fiend gives the more friendly counsel. I will run, fiend. My heels are at your command. I will run.
Old Gobbo enters, holding a basket. He is a blind man.
Master, young man, I pray you, which is the way to the master's Jews?
Oh, heavens, this is my true begotten father, who being more than sand blind, high gravel blind, knows me not. Do you not know me, father?
Oh, Lord, how art thou changed? How dost thou and thy masters agree? I have brought him a present.
I am famished in his service. You may tell every finger I have with my ribs. Father, I am glad you are come. Give me your present to one Master Bassanio, who indeed gives rare new liveries. If I serve not him, I will run as far as God and has any ground. Oh, rare fortune, here comes the man. To him, Father, for I am a Jew, if I serve the Jew any longer.
Bassanio and his servant Leonardo enter in deep conversation.
To him, Father, to him.
God bless your worship.
Gramercy, wouldst thou aught with my lord Bassanio?
Here is my son, sir, a poor boy.
Not a poor boy, sir, but the rich Jew's man, that would, sir, as my father shall specify.
He hath the great infection, sir, as one would say, to serve.
Indeed, the short and long is I serve the Jew and have a desire, as my father shall specify.
His master and he, saving your worship's reverence, are scarce cater cousins.
To be brief, the very truth is that the Jew, having done me wrong, doth cause me, as my father, being, I hope, an old man, shall fruitify unto you.
I have here a dish of doves that I would bestow upon your worship, and my suit is...
In very brief, the suit is impertinent to myself, as your worship shall know by this honest old man, and though I say it, though old man, yet poor man, my father.
Speak for both. What would you?
Serve you, sir.
That is the very defect of the matter, sir.
I know thee well. Thou hast obtained thy suit. Shylock the master spoke with me this day, and hath preferred thee. If it be preferment to leave a rich Jew's service to become the follower so poor of a gentleman.
The old proverb is very well parted between my master Shylock and you, sir. You have the grace of God, sir, and he hath enough.
Thou speakest it well, sir. Go, father, with thy son, take leave of thy old master, and inquire my lodging out. Give him a livery, more guarded than his fellows. See it done.
Father, in. I cannot get a service, no. I have ne'er tongue in my head. Well, if any man in Italy have the fairer table which doth offer to swear upon a book, I shall have good fortune. Go to. Here's a simple line of life. Here's a small trifle of wives. Alas, 15 wives is nothing. 11 widows and 9 maids is a simple coming in for one man, and then to scape drowning thrice, and to be in peril of my life and within the edge of a feather bed. Here are simple scapes. Well, if fortune be a woman, she's a good wench for this gear. Father, come, I'll take my leave of the Jew in the twinkling of an eye.
Launcelot and old Gobbo exit.
I pray thee, good Lord Leonardo, look on this. These things being bought and orderly bestowed, return in haste. I do feast tonight my best esteemed acquaintance. I thee go.
My best endeavor shall be done herein.
Enter Gratiano.
Where is your master?
Yonder, sir, he walks.
Signor Bassanio.
Gratiano.
I have a suit to you.
You have obtained it.
You must not deny me. I must go with you to Belmont.
Why, then you must. But hear thee, Gratiano, thou art too wild, too rude and bold of voice, parts that become thee happily enough, and in such eyes as are appeared not false. But where thou art known, why, there they show something too liberal. Pray thee, take pain to allay with some cold drops of modesty thy skipping spirit, lest thy wild behavior I be misconstrued in the place I go to, and lose my hopes.
Signor Bassanio, hear me. If I do not put on a sober habit, talk with respect, and swear but now and then, wear prayer books in my pocket, look demurely, nay, more, while grace is saying, hood mine eyes thus with my hat, and sigh and say amen. Use all the observance of civility, like one well studied and sad Austin to please his grandam. Never trust me more.
Well, we shall see your bearing.
Nay, but I bar tonight. You shall not gauge me by what we do tonight.
No, that we were pity. I would entreat you rather to put on your boldest suit of mirth, for we have friends that purpose merriment. But fare you well, I have some business.
And I must to Lorenzo and the rest, but we will visit you at supper time.
Exit. Scene 2. A room in Shylock's house. A thunderstorm is starting to rumble outside. Jessica and Launcelot are speaking urgently with each other.
I am sorry thou wilt leave my father so. Our house is hell, and thou a merry devil. Disrob it of some taste of tediousness. But farewell thee. There is a ducat for thee. And Launcelot, soon at supper shalt thou see Lorenzo, who is thy new master's guest. Give him this letter. Do it secretly, and so farewell. I would not have my father see me and talk with thee.
Adieu. Tears exhibit my tongue. Most beautiful pagan, most sweet Jew. If a Christian did not play the knave and get thee, I am much deceived. But adieu. These foolish drops do something drown my manly spirit.
Alack, what heinous sin is it in me to be ashamed to be my father's child? But though I am a daughter to his blood, I am not to his manners. Oh, Lorenzo, if thou keep promise, I shall end this strife, become a Christian and thy loving wife.
She exits just as Shylock enters. He is carrying some scrolls and some books.
Well, thou shalt see, thy eye shall be thy judge, the difference of old Shylock and Bassanio. Thou shalt not gormandize, as thou hast done with me. What, Jessica? Why, Jessica, I say.
Why, Jessica?
Who bids thee call?
Your worship.
I do not bid thee call.
Well, your worship was wont to tell me that I could do nothing without bidding.
Jessica re-enters and goes to her father.
Call you? What is your will?
I am bid forth to supper, Jessica. There are my keys, but wherefore should I go? I am not bid for love, they flatter me. But yet I'll go in hate to feed upon the prodigal Christian. Jessica, my girl, look to my house. I am right loath to go. There is some ill brewing towards my rest, for I did dream of money bags tonight.
I beseech you, sir, go. My young master doth expect your reproach.
So do I his.
And they have conspired together. I will not say you shall see a mask, but if you do, then it was not for nothing that my nose fell a-bleeding on Black Monday last at 6 o'clock in the morning. Ash Wednesday was 4 year in the afternoon.
What are there masks? Hear you me, Jessica. Lock up my doors, and when you hear the drum and the vile squealing of the wry-necked fife, chamber not you up to the casements then, nor thrust your head into the public street to gaze on Christian fools with varnished faces. Let not the sound of shallow foppery enter my sober house. By Jacob's staff, I swear I have no mind of feasting forth tonight. But I will go. Go you before me, Sirrah. Say I will come.
I will go before, sir.
He starts to exit, but not before whispering to Jessica.
Mistress, look out at window. For all this, there will come a Christian boy, will be worth a Jewess's eye.
He leaves.
What sayest thou, fool of Hagar's offspring, huh?
His words were, farewell, mistress. Nothing else.
The fool is kind enough, but a huge feeder. Snail slow in profit, then he sleeps by day more than a wildcat. Thrones hive not with me. Therefore, I part with him, and part with him to one that would have him help to waste his borrowed purse. Well, Jessica, go in. Perhaps I will return immediately. Do as I bid you. Shut doors after you. Fast bind, fast find. A proverb never stale in thrifty mind.
Jessica helps Shylock put on his coat. After she kisses his cheek, he pats her and reluctantly exits to have dinner with Bassanio and his group.
Farewell. And if my fortune be not crossed, I have a father, and you a daughter lost.
She exits with the key as a blast of lightning crashes through the sky. Scene 3, the same, a street. Enter Gratiano, Lorenzo, Salarino, and Salanio. They are plotting.
Nay, we will slink away in supper time, disguise us at my lodging, and return, all in an hour.
We have not made good preparation.
We have not spoke as yet of torchbearers. 'Tis vile, unless it may be quaintly ordered, and better in my mind not undertook.
'Tis now but 4 o'clock. We have 2 hours to furnish us.
Enter Launcelot with a letter.
Friend Launcelot, what's the news?
And it shall please you to break up this, it shall seem to signify.
Oh, I know the hand in faith. 'Tis a fair hand, and whiter than the paper it writ on is the fair hand that writ.
Love news and faith.
By your leave, sir.
Whither goest thou?
Marry, sir, to bid my old master the Jew to sup tonight with my new master the Christian.
Hold it, take this. Tell gentle Jessica I will not fail her. Speak it privately. Go, gentlemen.
Exit Launcelot.
Will you prepare you for this mask tonight? I am provided of a torchbearer.
Aye, marry, I'll be gone about it straight.
And so will I.
Meet me and Gratiano at Gratiano's lodging some hour hence.
'Tis good we do so.
Salarino and Salanio exit.
Was not that letter from fair Jessica?
Oh, I must needs tell thee all. She hath directed how I shall take her from her father's house, what gold and jewels she's furnished with, what page's suit she hath in redress, in readiness, if ere the Jew her father come to heaven, it will be for his gentle daughter's sake. And never dare misfortune cross her foot unless she do it under this excuse that she is issue to a faithless Jew. Come, go with me, peruse this as thou goest. Fair Jessica shall be my torchbearer.
They exit the stage, plan in motion. Some time passes. The air grows hot with the threat of the massive storm. Gratiano and Salarino enter, drunk and wearing masks.
This is the penthouse under which Lorenzo desired us to make stand.
His hour is almost past.
It is a marvel he dwells out this hour, for lovers ever run before the clock.
Oh, 10 times faster Venus's pigeons fly to seal love's bonds new made than they are wont to keep obliged faith unforfeited.
That ever holds. Who riseth from a feast with that keen appetite that he sits down?
Oh, here comes Lorenzo. More of this hereafter.
Enter Lorenzo with a mask.
Sweet friends, your patience for my long abode. Not I, but my affairs have made you wait. Oh, who's within?
A window opens and Jessica appears above, wearing boy's clothes.
Who are you? Tell me for certainty. Albeit I swear that I do know your tongue.
Lorenzo, and thy love.
Lorenzo certain, and my love indeed, for who I love so much. And now who knows, but you, Lorenzo, whether I am yours.
Oh, heaven and thy thoughts are witness that thou art.
Jessica holds out a heavy case holding some of her father's money and jewels.
Here, touch this casket, and it's worth the pains.
She goes to throw the case, but the group below frantically waves their arms and yells no. Embarrassed, she withdraws the case.
I am glad 'tis night, and you do not look on me, for I am much ashamed of my exchange, but love is blind, and lovers cannot see. The pretty follies that themselves commit, for if they could, Cupid himself would blush to see me thus transformed into a boy.
Descend, for you must be my torchbearer.
What must I hold a candle to my shame? They in themselves, good sooth, are too light. Why, 'tis an office of discovery, love, and I should be obscure.
So are you, sweet, even in the lovely garnish of a boy. But come at once, for the close night doth play the runaway.
I will make fast the doors and glide myself with some more ducats and be with you straight.
She closes the window and exits.
Now, by my hood, a Gentile and no Jew.
Beshrew me, but I love her heartily. For she is wise, if I can judge of her, and fair she is, if that mine eye be true, and true she is, as she hath proved herself. And therefore, like herself, wise, fair, and true, shall she be placed in my constant soul.
The door on the ground floor opens and Jessica steps out with the case and some bags.
What art thou come? On, gentlemen, away! Our masking mates by this time for us stay.
Jessica, Salerno, and Lorenzo exit. With a crash of thunder, the rainstorm starts. Antonio enters.
Who's there?
Signor Antonio!
Fine, Gratiano. Where are all the rest? 'Tis 9 o'clock. Our friends all stay for you. No mask tonight. The wind has come about. Bassanio presently will go aboard. I have sent 20 out to seek for you.
I am glad on it. I desire no more delight than to be under sail and gone tonight.
They both exit, covering their heads. Gratiano takes a massive drink. Scene 4, Venice, a street. Salarino and Salanio are gossiping about the day's news.
Why, man, I saw Bassanio under sail. With him is Gratiano, gone along. And in their ship, I'm sure Lorenzo is not.
The villain Jew with outcries raised the Duke, who went with him to search Bassanio's ship.
He came too late. The ship was under sail. But there, the Duke was given to understand that in a gondola were seen together Lorenzo and his amorous Jessica. Besides, Antonio certified the Duke they were not with Bassanio. Not in the ship.
I never heard a passion so confused, so strange, outrageous, and so variable, as the dog Jew did utter in the streets, "My daughter! Oh, my ducats! Oh, my daughter! Live with a Christian! Oh, my Christian ducats! Justice! The law! My ducats and my daughter! Sealed bag, 2 sealed bags of ducats, of double ducats, stolen from me by my daughter, and jewels! 2 stones, 2 rich and precious stones, stolen by my daughter. Justice, find the girl, she hath the stones upon her. And the ducats.
Why, all the boys in Venice follow him, crying, "His stones, his daughter, and his ducats!"
Let good Antonio look he keep his day, or he shall pay for this.
Oh, Mary, well remembered. I reasoned with a Frenchman yesterday, who told me in the narrow seas that the French and English were miscarried, a vessel of our country, richly fraught. I thought upon Antonio when he told me, and wished in silence that it were not his.
You were best to tell Antonio what you hear, yet do not suddenly, for it may grieve him.
A kinder gentleman treads not the earth. I saw Bassanio and Antonio part. Bassanio told him he would make some speed of his return. He answered, "Do not so, slubber not business for my sake, Bassanio, and stay the ripping of the time. And for the Jew's bond, which he hath of me, let it not enter in your mind of love. Be merry, and employ your chiefest thoughts to courtship, and such fair ostents of love, as such conveniently become you there." And even there, his eye being big with tears, turning his face, he put his hand behind him, and with affection wondrous sensible, he wrung Bassanio's hand, and so they parted.
I think he only loves the world for him. I pray thee, let us go and find him out, and quicken his embraced heaviness with some delight or other.
Do we so?
They both exit. Scene 5, Belmont. The Belmont estate is near empty, as all the suitors who viewed for Portia failed the challenge. Portia's back in her room with Nerissa. Stephano enters.
Where is my lady?
Here? What would my lord?
Madam, there is lighted at your gate a young Venetian, one that comes before to signify the approaching of his lord, from whom he bringeth sensible regrets. To wit, besides commends and courteous breath, gifts of rich value. Yet I have not seen so likely an ambassador of love. A day in April never came so sweet, to show how costly summer was at hand, as this forespur comes before his lord.
No more, I pray thee. I'm half afeard thou wilt say anon he is some kin to thee. Thou spent such a high day wit in praising him. Oh, come, Nerissa, for I long to see quick Cupid's post that comes so mannerly.
Bassanio, Lord love, if thy will it be.
They all exit to meet Bassanio and his followers. Act 3, Scene 1, Venice, a street. Enter Salanio and Salarino. They look grave.
Now, what news on the Rialto?
Why, yet it lives there unchecked that Antonio hath a ship of rich lading wrecked on the narrow seas. The Goodwins, I think they call the place, a very dangerous, flat, and fatal, where the carcasses of many a tall ship lie buried, as they say, if my gossip report be an honest woman of her word.
I would she were as lying a gossip that as ever napped ginger or made her neighbors believe she wept for the death of a third husband. But it is true, without any slips of prolixity or crossing the plain highway of talk, that the good Antonio, the honest Antonio, oh, that I had a title good enough to keep his name company.
Come, the full stop.
Huh? What sayest thou? Well, why the end is, he hath lost a ship.
I would it might prove the end of his losses.
Well, let me say amen betimes, lest the devil cross my prayer, for here he comes in the likeness of a Jew.
Shylock crosses onto the street. He looks angry. Salanio and Salarino immediately go to him.
How now, Shylock? What news amongst the merchants?
You know, none so well as you, of my daughter's flight.
Well, and Shylock, for his own part, knew the bird was fledged, and then it is the complexion of them all to leave the dam.
She is damned for it.
Well, that's certain, if the devil may be her judge.
My own flesh and blood to rebel.
Out upon it, old carrion. Rebels it at these years?
I say my daughter is my flesh and blood.
There is more difference between thy flesh and hers than between jet and ivory. More between your bloods than there is between red wine and Rhenish. But tell us, do you hear whether Antonio have had any loss at sea or no?
Let him look to his bond. He was wont to call me usurer. Let him look to his bond. He was wont to lend money for a Christian courtesy. Let him look to his bond.
Why, I am sure if he forfeit, thou wilt not take his flesh. What's that good for?
To bait fish withal. If it will feed nothing else, it will feed my revenge. He hath disgraced me, and hindered me 500,000, laughed at my losses, mocked at my gains, scorned my nation, thwarted my bargains, cooled my friends, heeded mine enemies. And what's his reason? I am a Jew. Hath not a Jew eyes? Hath not a Jew hands, organs, dimensions, senses, affections, passions, fed with the same food, hurt with the same weapons, subject to the same diseases, healed by the same means, warmed and cooled by the same winter and summer as a Christian is? If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? And if you wrong us, shall we not revenge? If we are like you and the rest, we will resemble you in that. If a Jew wrong a Christian, what is his humility? Revenge. If a Christian wrong a Jew, what should his sufferance be by Christian example? Why, revenge. The villainy you teach me, I will execute. And it shall go hard, but I will better the instruction.
A servant enters.
Gentlemen, my master Antonio is at his house and desires to speak with you both.
We have been up and down to seek him.
Tubal enters. He's looking for Shylock.
Here comes another of the tribe. A third cannot be matched unless the devil himself turn Jew.
Exit Salanio, Salarino, and the servant.
How now, Tubal? What news from Genoa? Hast thou found my daughter?
I often came where I did hear of her, but I cannot find her.
Why? There. The diamond gone. Cost me 2,000 ducats in Frankfurt. The curse never fell upon our nation till now. I never felt it till now. 2,000 ducats of that and other precious jewels. I would my daughter were dead at my foot, and the jewels in her ear. Would she were hearsed at my foot, and the ducats in her coffin. No news of them? Why so? And I know not what's spent in the search. Why thou loss upon loss? The thief gone was so much, and so much to find the thief, and no satisfaction, no revenge, no in luck stirring but what lights on my shoulders. No sighs, but of my breathing. No tears, but of my shedding.
Yes, other men have ill luck too. Antonio, as I heard in Genoa, hath a ship cast away coming from Tripolis.
I thank God. I thank God. It's true.
I spoke with some of the sailors that escaped the wreck.
I thank thee. Good Tubal. Good news. Good news. Where? In Genoa.
Your daughter spent in Genoa, as I heard, in one night 80 ducats.
Thou stickest a dagger in me. I shall never see my gold again. 80 ducats at a sitting. 80 ducats.
There came diverse of Antonio's creditors in my company to Venice that swear he cannot choose but break.
I am very glad of it. I'll plague him. I'll torture him. I am glad of it.
Oh, and one of them showed me a ring that he had of your daughter for a monkey.
Out upon her! Thou torturest me, Tubal. It was my turquoise. I had it of Leia when I was a bachelor. I would not have given it for a wilderness of monkeys.
But Antonio is certainly undone.
Nay, that's true. That's very true. Go, Tubal, fee me an officer, bespeak him a fortnight before. I will have the heart of him, if he forfeit. For were he out of Venice, I can make what merchandise I will. Go, Tubal, and meet me at our synagogue.
Exit. Scene 2. Belmont, a room in Portia's house. Enter Bassanio, Portia, Gratiano, Nerissa, Leonardo, Balthazar, and Stephano.
Pray you tarry, pause a day or two before you hazard, for in choosing wrong I lose your company. Therefore forbear a while. There's something tells me, but it is not love. I would not lose you, and you know yourself, hate counsels not in such a quality, but lest you should not understand me well, and yet a maiden hath no tongue but thought, I would detain you here some month or two before you venture for me. I could teach you how to choose right, and then I am forsworn. So will I never be, so may you miss me. But if you do, you'll make me wish a sin that I had been forsworn. Beshrew your eyes, they've o'erlooked me and divided me. One half of me is yours, the other half yours. Mine own, I would say, but if mine, then yours, and God, so all yours. Oh, these naughty times put bars between the owners and their rights. And so, though yours, not yours, prove it so. Let fortune go to hell for it, not I. God, I speak too long, but 'tis to appease the time, to eke it and draw it out in length, to stay you from election.
Let me choose, for as I am, I live upon the rack.
Upon the rack, Bassanio, then confess what treason there is mingled with your love.
None but that treason of mistrust, which makes me fear the enjoying of my love. There may as well be amity in life, tween snow and fire, as treason in my love.
Aye, but I fear you speak upon the rack, where men enforced do speak anything.
Promise me life.
Well,
confess the truth.
Well then, confess and live.
Confess and love had been the very sum of my confession. Oh, happy torment, when my torturer doth teach me answers for deliverance, but let me to my fortune and the caskets.
Away then, I am locked in one of them. If you do love me, you will find me out.
Bassanio looks over the casket and comments on them to himself. Everyone is watching him with bated breath.
So may the outward shows belease themselves. The world is still deceived with ornament. In law, what plea so tainted and corrupt but being seasoned with a gracious voice obscures the show of evil? In religion, what damned error but some sober brow will bless it and approve it with a text, hiding the grossness with fair ornament? There is no vice so simple but assumes some mark of virtue on his outward parts. How many cowards, whose hearts are as false as stairs of sand, wear yet upon their chins the beards of Hercules or frowning Mars, who, inward searched, have livers white as milk, and these assume but valor's excrement to render them redoubted. Look on beauty, and you shall see 'tis purchased by the weight, which therein works as a miracle in nature, making them lightest that wear most of it. So are those crispy snaked golden locks, which make such wanton gambols with the wind, upon supposed fairness, often known to be the dowry of a second head, the skull that bred them in the sepulchre. Thus, ornament is but the guiled shore to a most dangerous sea. The beauteous scarf veiling an Indian beauty. In a word, the seeming truth which cunning times put on to entrap the wisest. Therefore, thou gaudy gold, hard food for Midas, I will none of thee. Nor none of thee, thou pale and common drudge tween man and man, but thou meager lead, which rather threatenest than dost promised aught. Thy paleness moves me more than eloquence, and here I choose joy be the consequence.
How all the other passions fleet to air, as doubtful thoughts and rash embrace despair, and shuddering fear, and green-eyed jealousy. God, oh love, be moderate. Allay thy ecstasy, in measure reign thy joy. Scant this excess. I feel too much thy blessing, make it less, for I fear surfeit.
What find I here?
Opening the leaden casket and pulls out a portrait.
Oh, fair Portia's counterfeit. What demigod hath come so near creation? Move these eyes, oh, whether riding on the balls of mine seem they in motion. Here are severed lips parted with sugar breath, so sweet a bar should sunder such sweet friends. Here in her hairs the painter plays the spider and hath woven a golden mesh to entrap the hearts of men, faster than gnats in cobwebs. But her eyes, how could he see to do them? Having made one, methinks it should have power to steal both his and leave itself unfurnished. Yet look, how far the substance of my praise doth wrong this shadow in underprizing it. So far this shadow doth limp behind the substance. Here's the scroll, the continent and summary of my fortune.
He unrolls the scroll and reads the message.
You that choose, not by the view, chance as fair and choose as true. Since this fortune falls to you, be content and seek no new. If you be well pleased with this, and hold your fortune for your bliss, turn you where your lady is, and claim her with a loving kiss.
He rolls it back up and grabs his wife with joy to the cheers of everyone.
Hear, 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 hear.
Oh, a gentle scroll, fair lady, by your leave, I come by note to give and to receive. That thinks he hath done well in people's eyes, hearing applause and universal shout, giddy in spirit, still gazing in a doubt, whether these pearls of praise be his or no. So, thrice, fair lady, stand I, even so, as doubtful whether that I see be true, until confirmed, signed, ratified by you.
They kiss. True love's first kiss? Perhaps, but maybe not.
You see me, Lord Bassanio, where I stand. Such as I am, though for myself alone I would not be ambitious in my wish, to wish myself much better, yet for you I would be trebled 20 times myself, 1,000 times more fair, 10,000 times more rich, that only to stand high in your account I might in virtue, beauties, livings, friends, exceed account, but the full sum of me is sum of something, which, to term in gross, is an unlessoned girl, unschooled, unpracticed, happy in this. She's not yet so old, but she may learn. Happier than this, she is not bred so dull, but she can learn. Happiest of all is that her gentle spirit commits itself to yours to be directed. As from her lord, her governor, her king, myself and what is mine to you and yours is now converted. But now I was the lord of this fair mansion, master of my servants, queen o'er myself, and even now, but now this house, these servants, and this same myself are yours, my lord. I give them with this ring, which when you part from, lose or give away, let it presage the ruin of your love and be my vantage to exclaim on you.
Madam, you have bereft me of all words. Only my blood speaks to you in my veins, and there is such confusion in my powers. But when this ring parts from this finger, then parts life from hence. Oh, then be bold to say Bassanio's deed.
My lord Bassanio and my gentle lady, I wish you all the joy that you can wish, for I am sure you can wish none for me. And when your honors mean to solemnize the bargain of your faith, I do beseech you, even at that time, I may be married.
With all my heart, so thou canst get a wife.
I thank your lordship, you have got me one. My eyes, my lord, can look as swift as yours. You saw the mistress, I beheld the maid. You loved, I loved for intermission.
Is this true, Nerissa?
Madam, it is. So you stand pleased with all?
And do you, good Gratiano, mean good faith?
Yes, faith, my lord.
Our feast shall be much honored in your marriage.
We'll play with them the first boy for 1,000 ducats.
What? And stake down?
No, we shall ne'er win at that sport and stake down. But who comes here? Launcelot? Lorenzo and his infidel? What, and my old Venetian friend Salarino?
Lancelot, Lorenzo, Jessica, and Salario, a messenger from Venice, enter the room. They look disheveled from the journey. Salario is grim.
Renzo and Salario, welcome hither. If that the youth of my new interest here have power to bid you welcome, by your leave, I bid my very friends and countrymen, sweet Portia, welcome.
They are entirely welcome.
I thank your honor. For my part, my lord, my purpose was not to have seen you here, but meeting with Salario by the way, he did entreat me, past all saying nay, to come with him along.
I did, my lord, and I have reason for it. Signor Antonio commends him to you.
He gives Bassanio a letter.
Ere I ope this letter, I pray you tell me how my good friend doth.
Not sick, my lord, unless it be in mind, nor well unless in mind. His letter there will show you his estate.
Nerissa, cheer yon stranger, bid her welcome. Your hand, Salario. What's the news from Venice? How doth that royal merchant, good Antonio? I know he will be glad of our success. We are the Jasons. We have won the fleece.
I would you had won the fleece that he hath lost.
There are some shrewd contents in yon same paper that steals the color from Bassanio's cheek. Some dear friend dead, else nothing in the world could turn so much the constitution of any constant man. What worse and worse! With leave, Bassanio, I am half yourself, and I must freely have half of anything that the same paper brings you.
Oh, sweet Portia, here are a few of the unpleasantest words that ever blotted paper. Gentle lady, when I did first impart my love to you, I freely told you all the wealth I had ran in my veins. I was a gentleman, and then I told you true, and yet, dear lady, rating myself at nothing, You shall see how much I was a braggart. When I told you my state was nothing, I should then have told you that I was worse than nothing. For indeed, I have engaged myself to a dear friend, engaged my friends to his mere enemy to feed my means. Here is a letter, lady, the paper as the body of my friend, and every word in it a gaping wound, issuing life blood. But is it true, Salario? Have all his ventures failed? What, not one hit? From Tripolis, from Mexico and England, from Lisbon, Barbary and India, and not one vessel scape the dreadful touch of merchant marring rocks?
Not one, my lord. As it should appear that he had the present money to discharge the Jew, he would not take it. Never did I know a creature that did bear the shape of a man. So keen and greedy to confound a man, he plies the Duke at morning and at night, and doth impeach the freedom of the state. If they deny him just 20 merchants, the Duke himself and the magnificos of greatest port have all persuaded with him, but none can drive him from the envious plea of forfeiture of justice and his bond.
I was with him. I have heard him swear to Tubal and Chess, his countrymen, that he would rather have Antonio's flesh than 20 times the value of the sum. But he did owe him, and I know, my lord, if law, authority, and power deny not, I will go hard with poor Antonio.
Is it your dear friend that is thus in trouble?
The dearest friend to me.
What sum owes he, the Jew?
For me, 3,000 ducats.
What, no more? Pay him 6,000 and deface the bond. Double 6,000, then treble that, before a friend of this description shall lose a hair through Bassanio's fault. But let me hear the letter of your friend.
Sweet Bassanio, my ships have all miscarried. My creditors grow cruel. My estate is very low. My bond to the Jew is forfeit. And since in paying it, it is impossible I should live. All debts are cleared between you and I, if I might but see you at my death, notwithstanding use your pleasure. If your love do not persuade you to come, let not my letter.
Oh, love, dispatch all business and be gone. First go with me to church and call me wife, and then away to Venice with your friend, for never shall you lie by Portia's side with an unquiet soul. You shall have gold to pay the petty debt 20 times over. When it is paid, bring your true friend along. And come away, for you shall hence upon your wedding day.
Since I have your good leave to go away, I will make haste. But till I come again, no bed shall e'er be guilty of my stay, no rest be interposed twixt us stain.
They all exit to the chapel for the double wedding. Scene 3, Venice, a street. Enter Shylock, Salarino, Antonio, and the jailer.
Jailer, look to him. Tell not me of mercy. This is the fool that lent out money gratis. Jailer, look to him.
Hear me yet, good Shylock.
I'll have my bond. Speak not against my bond. I have sworn an oath that I will have my bond. Thou callest me a dog before thou hast a cause. But since I am a dog, beware my fangs. The Duke shall grant me justice. I do wonder, though, naughty jailer, that thou art so fond to come abroad with him at his request.
I pray thee, hear me speak.
I'll have my bond. I will not hear thee speak. I'll have my bond, and therefore speak no more. I'll not be made a soft and delight fool to shake the head, relent, and sigh, and yield to Christian intercessors. Follow not. I'll have no speaking. I will have my bond.
He exits.
It is the most impenetrable cur that ever kept with men.
Let him alone. I'll follow him no more with bootless prayers. He seeks my life. His reason well I know.
I am sure the Duke will never grant this forfeiture to hold.
The Duke cannot deny the course of law. For the commodity that strangers have with us in Venice, if it be denied, will much impeach the justice of his state. Therefore go. These griefs and losses have so baited me that I shall hardly spare a pound of flesh tomorrow to my bloody creditor. Well, jailer, on. Pray God, Bassanio come to see me pay his debt, and then I care not.
And the jailer takes Antonio away. Scene 4, Belmont. A hall in Portia's house. Portia, Nerissa, Lorenzo, Jessica, and Balthazar enter.
Madam, although I speak it in your presence, you have a noble and a true conceit of godlike amity, which appears most strongly in bearing thus the absence of your lord. But if you knew to whom you show this honor, how true a gentleman you send relief, how dear a lover of my lord your husband, I know you would be prouder of the work than customary bounty can enforce you.
I never did repent for doing good, nor shall not now, for in companions that do converse and waste the time together, whose souls do bear an equal yoke of love, there must be needs like a proportion of lineaments, of manners, and of spirit, which makes me think that this Antonio, being the bosom lover of my lord, must needs be like my lord. If it be so, how little is the cost I've bestowed in purchasing the semblance of my soul from out the state of hellish misery. This comes too near the praising of myself, therefore no more of it. I hear of other things. Lorenzo, I commit into your hands the husbandry and manage of my house until my lord's return. For my own part, I have toward heaven breathed a secret vow, to live in prayer and contemplation, only attended by Nerissa here, until her husband and my lord's return. There is a monastery 2 miles off, and there we will abide. I do desire you not to deny this imposition, to which my love and some necessity now lays upon you.
Oh, madam, with all my heart I shall obey you in all fair commands.
My people do already know my mind, and will acknowledge you and Jessica in place of Lord Bassanio and myself. And so you farewell, till we shall meet again.
Fair thoughts and happy hours attend on you.
I wish your ladyship all heart's content.
I thank you for your wish, and am well pleased to wish it back to you. Fare you well, Jessica.
Jessica and Lorenzo exit.
And now, Balthazar, as I have ever found thee honest true, so let me find thee still. Take this same letter, and use thou all the endeavor of a man, and speed to Padua. See thou render this into my cousin's hand, Dr. Bellario. And look, what notes and garments he doth give thee, bring them, I pray thee, with imagined speed into the Tranact, to the common ferry which trades to Venice. Waste no time in words, but get thee gone. I shall be there before thee.
Madam, I go with all convenient speed.
Balthazar exits with speed.
Come on, Nerissa. I have work in hand that you yet not know of. We'll see our husbands before they think of us.
Shall they see us?
They shall, Nerissa, but in such a habit that they shall think we are accustomed with that we lacked. I'll hold thee any wager, when we are both accoutred like young men. I'll prove the prettier fellow of the two, and wear my dagger with the braver grace, and speak with the change of man and boy with a reed voice, and turn 2 mincing steps into manly stride, and speak a phrase like a fine bragging youth, and tell quaint lies. How honorable ladies sought my love, which I, denying, they fell sick and died. I could not do withal, and then I'll repent and wish for all that had I not killed them, and 20 of these puny lies I'll tell, that men shall swear I have discontinued school above a 12-month. I have within my mind 1,000 raw tricks of these bragging jacks, which I will practice.
Why, shall we turn to men?
What question's that? If thou wert near, a lewd interpreter. But come, I'll tell thee all my whole device when I am in my coach, which stays for us at the park gate, and therefore haste away, for we must 20 miles today.
Setting their plan into motion, Portia and Nerissa exit. Scene 5, the same, a garden. Enter Launcelot and Jessica.
Yes, truly, for look you, the sins of the father are to be laid upon the children. Therefore, I promise ye, I fear you. I was always plain with you, and so now I speak my agitation of the matter. Therefore be of good cheer, for truly I think you are damned. There is but one hope in it that can do you any good, and that is but a kind of bastard hope neither.
And what hope is that, I pray thee?
Mary, you may partly hope that your father got you not, that you are not the Jew's daughter.
That were a kind of bastard hope indeed, so the sins of my mother should be visited upon me.
Truly, then I fear you are damned both by father and mother. Thus, when I shun Scylla, your father, I fall into Charybdis, your mother. Well, you are gone both ways.
I shall be saved by my husband. He hath made me a Christian.
Truly, the more to blame he. We were Christians and now before, even as many as could well live, one by another. This making Christians will raise the price of hogs. If we grow all to be pork eaters, we shall not shortly have a rasher on the coals for money.
Lorenzo enters. He's a bit suspicious as to what this exchange is about.
I'll tell my husband, Launcelot. What you say. Here he comes.
I shall grow jealous of you shortly, Lancelot, if you thus get my wife into corners.
Nay, you need not fear us, Lorenzo. Lancelot and I are out. He tells me flatly there is no mercy for me in heaven because I am a Jew's daughter. And he says you are no good member of the Commonwealth for converting Jews to Christians. You raise the price of pork.
Goodly Lord, what a wit snapper are you. Oh, bid them prepare dinner.
That is done too, sir. Only cover is the word.
Will you cover then, sir?
Not so, sir, neither. I know my duty.
Yet more quarreling with occasion. Wilt thou show the whole wealth of thy wit in an instant? I pray, tree, understand a plain man in his plain meaning. Go to thy fellows. Bid them cover the table, serve in the meat, and we will come in to dinner.
For the table, sir, it shall be served in. For the meat, sir, it shall be covered. For your coming into dinner, sir, why let it be as humors and conceits shall govern.
How cheers thou, Jessica? And now, good sweet, say thy opinion. How dost thou like the Lord Bassanio's wife?
Past all expressing, yes, very neat. The Lord Bassanio live and upright life. I meant the Lord Bassanio lives an upright life, for having such a blessing in his lady, he finds the joy of heaven here on earth. And if on earth he do not mean it, then in reason he should never come to heaven. Why, if two gods should play some heavenly match on that wager, lay two earthly women and Portia one, there must be something else pawned in with the other, or the poor rude world hath not her fellow.
Even such a husband hast thou of me, as she is for a wife.
Nay, but ask my opinion too of that.
I will anon. First, let us go to dinner.
Let me praise you while I have a stomach.
No, pray thee, let it serve for table talk. Then howsoever thou speakst, among other things, I shall digest it.
Well, I'll set you forth.
And they exit to dinner. Act 4. Scene 1. Venice, a court of justice. A crowd has gathered in the court. On one side are supporters of Antonio, on the other, supporters of Shylock. The Duke and Salarino are seated. Salario takes notes. Tubal is standing near Shylock. Bassanio is standing near Shylock. Bassanio, Salarino, Salanio, Gratiano, Launcelot, and Leonardo are standing near Antonio. Unbeknownst to them, Balthazar and Stephano are also in the crowd. The air is abuzz with tension.
What? Is Antonio here?
Ready, so please your grace.
I am sorry to be. Thou art come to answer a stony adversary, an inhuman wretch incapable of pity, void and empathy from any dram of mercy.
I have heard your grace hath taken many great pains to qualify his rigorous course. But since he stands obdurate, and that no lawful means can carry me out of his envy's reach, I do oppose my patience to his fury, and am armed to suffer with a quietness of spirit, the very tyranny and rage of his.
Go one, and call the Jew into this court.
He is ready at the door. He comes, my lord.
Shylock enters, carrying the bond, a crate, and some tools. The crowd goes silent.
Make room, and let him stand before our face. Shylock, the world thinks, and I think so too, that thou but leadest this fashion of thy malice to the last hour of act. And then 'tis thou show thy mercy and remorse more strange than is thy strange apparent cruelty. And where thou now exactest the penalty, which is the pound of this poor merchant's flesh, thou wilt not only loose the forfeiture, but touch it with human gentleness and love. Forgive a moiety of the principal, glancing an eye of pity on this losses and have of late so huddled on his back, and now to press a royal merchant down and pluck commiseration of his state. From brassy bosoms and rough hearts of flint, from stubborn Turks and Tartars, never trained to the offices of tender courtesy, we all expect a gentle answer, Jew.
I have informed your grace of what I purpose. And by our holy Sabbath have I sworn to have the due and forfeit of my bond. If you deny it, let the danger light upon your charter and your city's freedom. You'll ask me why I rather choose to have a weight of carrion flesh than to receive 3,000 ducats? I'll not answer that. But say it is my humor. Is it answered? But if my house be troubled with a rat, and I be pleased to give 10,000 ducats to have it baned, what are you answered yet? Some men there are love, not a gaping pig. Some that are mad if they behold a cat. And others, when the bagpipe sings in nose, cannot contain their urine. For affection, mistress of passion, sways it to the mood of what it likes or loathes. Now for your answer, and there is no firm reason to be rendered, why he cannot abide a gaping pig, why he a harmless, necessary cat, why he a willing bagpipe, but of force must yield to such inevitable shame as to offend himself being offended. So can I give no reason, nor will I not, more than a lodged hate and a certain loathing I bear Antonio, that I follow thus a losing suit against him. Are you answered?
The crowd cries yes or no while guards hold them back. Someone spits at Shylock.
"'Tis no answer, thou unfeeling man, to excuse the current of thy cruelty.
I am not bound to please thee with my answers.
Do all men kill things they do not love?
Hates any man the thing he would not kill.
Every offense is not a hate at first.
What? Wouldst thou have a serpent sting thee twice?
I pray you, think you question with the Jew. You may as well go stand upon the beach and bid the main flood bait his usual height. You may as well use question with the wolf why he hath made the ewe bleat for the lamb. You may as well forbid the mountain pines to wag their high tops and to make no noise when they are fretting with the gusts of heaven. You may as well do anything most hard as seek to soften that, than what's harder. his Jewish heart. Therefore, I do beseech you, make no more offers. Use no farther means, but with all brief and plain conveniency, let me have judgment and the Jew his will.
The crowd once again becomes a mob. It is getting harder for the guards to hold them back. Bassanio steps forward and yells over the crowd.
For thy 3,000 ducats here is 6.
Leonardo and another man bring forth a giant chest filled with ducats. As they set down, Shylock looks over them, picks up a handful and lets them slowly drop. During this, someone goes to Salarino and whispers in his ear some news.
What judgment shall I dread doing? Were in 6 parts at every part a ducat. I would not draw them. I would have my bond.
How shalt thou hope for mercy, rendering none?
What judgment shall I dread, doing no wrong? You have among you many a purchased slave, which like your asses and your dogs and mules you use in abject and in slavish parts, because you bought them. Shall I say to you, let them be free, marry them to your heirs? Why sweat they under burthens? Let their beds be made as soft as yours, and let their palates be seasoned with such viands. You will answer, the slaves are ours. So do I answer you. The pound of flesh which I demand of him is dearly bought. 'Tis mine, and I will have it. If you deny me, fie upon your law. There is no force in the decrees of Venice. I stand for judgment. Answer. Shall I have it?
He pulls out a large knife and the crowd loses it. The Duke springs to his feet, clapping and calling for silence.
Upon my power, I may dismiss this court, unless Bellario, a learned doctor, whom I have sent for to determine this, come here today.
My lord, he here stays without a messenger with letters from the doctor. New comes from Padua.
Bring us the letter. Call the messenger.
Salarino exits the court.
Dear Antonio, what man courage yet? The Jews shall have my flesh, blood, bones, and all, ere thou shalt lose from me 1 drop of blood.
I am attainted whether of the flock meetest for death. The weakest kind of fruit drops earliest to the ground, and so let me. You cannot better be employed, Bassanio, than to live still and write mine epitaph.
Salarino re-enters with Nerissa in disguise as a lawyer's clerk.
Came you from Padua? From Bellario?
From both, my lord. Bellario greets your grace.
Presenting a letter.
Why dost thou whet thy knife so earnestly?
To cut the forfeiture from that bankrupt there.
Not on thy soul, but on thy soul, harsh Jew. Thou makest thy knife keen, but no metal can, no, not the hangman's axe, bear half the keenness of thy sharp envy. Can no prayers pierce thee?
No, none that thou hast wit enough to make.
Oh, be thou damned, an execrable dog, and for thy life let justice be accused.
Till thou canst rail the seal from off my bond. Thou but offense thy lungs to speak so loud. Repair thy wit, good youth, or it will fall to cureless ruin. I stand here for the law.
This letter from Bellario doth commend a young and learned doctor to our court. Where is he?
He attendeth here hard by. We'll know your answer, whether you'll admit him.
With all my heart. Some 3 or 4 of you go give him courteous conduct to this place. Meantime, the court shall hear Bellario's letter.
Nerissa leaves and the Duke hands the letter to Salarino. Salarino reads it aloud.
Your grace shall understand that at the receipt of your letter I am very sick, but in the instant that your messenger came, in loving visitation, was with me a young doctor of Rome. His name is Balthazar. I acquainted him with the cause and controversy. between the Jew and Antonio the merchant. We turned over many books together. He is furnished with my opinion, which bettered with his own learning, the greatness whereof I cannot enough command, comes with him at my importunity to fill up your grace's request in my stead. I beseech you, let his lack of years be no impediment to let him lack a reverent estimation, for I never knew so young a body with so old a head. I leave him to your gracious acceptance, whose trial shall better publish his commendation.
You hear the learned Bellario. What he writes, and hear. I take it. Is the doctor come?
Enter Nerissa and Portia, disguised a doctor of laws.
You are welcome. Take your place. Are you acquainted with the difference that holds the present question in the court?
I am informed thoroughly of the cause. Which is the merchant here, and which the Jew?
Antonio, an old Shylock. Both, stand forth.
Is your name Shylock?
Shylock is my name.
Of a strange nature is the suit you follow, yet in such rule that the Venetian law cannot impugn you as you do proceed. You stand within his danger, do you not?
Aye, so he says.
Do you confess the bond?
I do.
Then must the Jew be merciful?
On what compulsion must I? Tell me that.
The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed. It blesseth him that gives and him that takes. 'Tis mightiest in the mightiest. It becomes the throned monarch better than this crown. His scepter shows the force of temporal power, the attribute to awe and majesty wherein doth sit the dread and fear of kings. But mercy is above this sceptered sway. It is enthroned in the hearts of kings. It is an attribute to God himself. And earthly power doth then show likest gods when mercy seasons justice. Therefore, Jew, though this justice be thy plea, consider this, that in the course of justice, none of us should see salvation. We do pray for mercy, and that the same prayer doth teach us all to render the deeds of mercy. I have spoke thus much to mitigate the justice of thy plea, which if you follow in this strict court of Venice, must needs give sentence against the merchant there.
My deeds upon my head. I crave the law, the penalty and forfeit of my bond.
Is he not able to discharge the money?
Yes. Here I tender it for him in the court. Yeah, twice the sum. If that will suffice, I will be bound to pay it 10 times over. On forfeit of my hands, my head, my heart. If this will not suffice, it must appear that malice bears down truth. And I beseech you, rest once the law to your authority to do a great right, do a little wrong, and curb this cruel devil of his will.
Well, it must not be. There is no power in Venice that can alter a decree established. 'Twill be recorded for a precedent, and many an error by the same example will rush into the state. It cannot be.
Daniel, come to judgment. Yeah, Daniel. A wise young judge, how I do honor thee.
The crowd who supports Shylock cheers in response.
I pray you, let me look upon the bond.
Here it is, most reverend doctor. Here it is.
Shylock, there's thrice thy money offered thee.
An oath. An oath. I have an oath in heaven. Shall I lay perjury upon my soul?
Why, this bond is forfeit. And lawfully by this the Jew may claim a pound of flesh to be by him cut off nearest the merchant's heart. But be merciful, take thrice thy money, bid me tear the bond.
And it is paid according to the tenor. It doth appear you are a worthy judge. You know the law. Your exposition has been most sound. I charge you by the law, whereof you are a well-deserving pillar, proceed to judgment. By my soul, I swear there is no power in the tongue of a man to alter me. I stay here on my bond.
Most heartily I do beseech the court to give the judgment.
Why then, thus as it is, you must prepare your bosom for his knife.
Noble judge, oh excellent young man.
For the intent and purpose of the law hath full relation to the penalty, which here appeareth due upon the bond.
'Tis very true. O wise and upright judge, how much more elder art thou than thy looks?
Therefore lay bare your bosom.
Aye, his breast, so says the bond, doth it not, noble judge? Nearest his heart! Those are the very words.
It is so. Are there balance here to weigh the flesh?
I have them ready.
As Shylock pulls out the scales, Antonio collapses. Gratiano, Bassanio, and the other men catch him and immediately lay him in a chair, giving him water. Shylock is not sympathetic.
Have by some surgeon, Shylock, on your charge to stop his wounds, lest he do bleed to death.
Is it so nominated in the bond?
It is not so expressed, but what of that? 'Twere good you do so much for charity.
I cannot find it. It is not in the bond.
You merchant, have you anything to say?
And then strap Antonio to the chair and unbutton his shirt. He makes a sign of the cross and looks at Portia.
But little. I am armed and well prepared. Give me your hand, Bassanio. Fare you well. Grieve not that I am fallen to this for you, for herein Fortune shows herself more kind than is her custom. It is still her use to let the wretched man outlive his wealth, to view with hollow eye and wrinkled brow an age of poverty, from which lingering penance of such misery doth she cut me off. Commend me to your honorable wife. Tell her the process of Antonio's end. Say how I loved you. Speak me fair in death, and when the tale is told, bid her be judge whether Bassanio had not once a love. Repent, but you that you shall lose your friend, and he repents not that he pays your debt. For if the Jew do cut but deep enough, I'll pay it presently with all my heart.
I am married to a wife, which is as dear to me as life itself. But life itself, my wife, and all the world are not with me esteemed above thy life. I would lose all, sacrifice them all here to this devil to deliver you.
Your wife would give you little thanks for that, if she were by to hear you make the offer.
I have a wife whom I protest I love. I would she were in heaven, so she could entreat some power to change this currish Jew.
'Tis well you offer it behind her back, the wish you make else an unquiet house.
These be the Christian husbands. I have a daughter. Would any of the stock of Barabbas had been her husband rather than a Christian? We trifle time, I pray thee pursue sentence.
A pound of that same merchant's flesh is thine. The court awards it, and the law doth give it.
Most rightful judge.
And you must cut this flesh from off his breast. The law allows it, and the court awards it.
Most learned judge, a sentence. Come, prepare.
Shylock makes his way forward to bound Antonio. He says a silent prayer as he prepares himself. Suddenly, just as he is about to make the first cut.
Tarry a little, there is something else. This bond doth give thee here no jot of blood. The words are expressly a pound of flesh. Take then thy bond, take thou thy pound of flesh. But in the cutting of it, if thou dost shed one drop of Christian blood, thy lands and goods are, by the laws of Venice, confiscate unto the state of Venice.
Oh, upright judge, mark Jew, oh, learned judge.
Is that the law?
Thyself shalt see the act, for as thou urgest justice, be assured thou shalt have justice. more than thou desirest.
Oh, learned judge. Mark, Jew, a learned judge.
I take this offer then. Pay the bond thrice and let the Christian go.
Here is the money.
Soft. The Jew shall have all justice. Soft, no haste. He shall have nothing but the penalty.
Jew, an upright judge, a learned judge.
Therefore prepare thee to cut off the flesh. Shed thou no blood, nor cut thou less no more, but just a pound of flesh. If thou cutt'st more or less than just a pound, be it but so much as makes it light or heavy in the substance, or the division of the 20th part of one poor scruple, nay, if the scale do turn but in the estimation of a hair, thou diest, and all thy goods are confiscate.
Second Daniel. Now, infidel, I have you on the hip.
Why doth the Jew pause? Take thy forfeiture.
Why then the devil give him good of it? I'll stay no longer question.
Tarry, Jew. The law hath yet another hold on you. It is enacted in the laws of Venice, if it be proved against an alien that by direct or indirect attempts he seek the life of any citizen, the party against which he doth contrive shall seize one half of his goods. The other half comes to the privy coffer of the state, and the offender's life lies in the mercy of the Duke only, against all other voice. If in which predicament, I say, thou standst for, it appears by manifest proceeding that indirectly and directly too, thou hast contrived against the very life of the defendant, and thou hast incurred the danger formerly by me rehearsed. Down therefore and beg mercy of the Duke.
Shylock slowly gets to his knees in front of the Duke, Portia, and Antonio. He clasps his hand in mercy.
Beg that thou mayst have leave to hang thyself.
That thou shalt see the difference of our spirits. I pardon thee, thy life before thou ask it. For half thy wealth is Antonio's. The other half comes to the general state.
Nay, take my life and all, pardon at that. You take my house when you take the prop that does sustain my house. You take my life when you do take the means whereby I live.
What mercy can you render him, Antonio?
A halter gratis, nothing else, for God's sake.
So please, my lord, the Duke and all the court, to quit the fine for one half of his goods. I am content. So he will let me have the other half in use to render it upon his death unto the gentleman that lately stole his daughter. 2 things provided more, that for this favor he presently become a Christian. The other, that he do record a gift here in the court of all he dies possessed to his son Lorenzo and his daughter.
He shall do this, or else I do recant the pardon that I late pronounced here.
Art thou contented, Jew? What dost thou say?
I am content.
Clerk, draw a deed of gift.
I pray you give me leave to go from hence. I am not well. Send the deed after me, and I will sign it.
Get thee gone, but do it. Court dismissed.
The crowd starts to leave. Shylock makes his way through while Portia looks on in sadness. Someone takes his hat off his head while others spit at him.
Sir, I entreat you home with me to dinner.
I humbly do desire your grace of pardon. I must away this night toward Padua, and it is meet I presently set forth.
I am sorry that your leisure serves you not, Antonio. Gratify this gentleman, for in my mind you are much bound to him.
The Duke and clerk exits. Portia and Nerissa make their way to the exit, but Bassanio, Gratiano, Leonardo, and Antonio stop them.
Most worthy gentlemen, I and my friend have by your wisdom been this day acquitted of grievous penalties, in lieu whereof there are 3,000 ducats. Do unto the Jew we freely cope, your courteous pains withal.
and stand indebted over and above in love and service to you evermore.
He is well paid that is well satisfied, and I, delivering you, am satisfied, and therein do account myself well paid.
Dear sir, a force. I must attempt you further. Take some remembrance of us, a tribute, not as a fee. Grant me two things. I pray you not to deny me, and do pardon me.
You press me far, and therefore I will yield. Give me your gloves. I'll wear them for your sake, and for your love, I'll take this ring from you. Do not draw back your hand. I'll take no more, and you, in love, shall not deny me this.
This ring, good sir, alas, it is a trifle. I will not shame myself to give you this.
I will have nothing else, but only this.
There's more depends on this than on the value. The dearest ring in Venice will I give you, and find it out by proclamation. Only for this I pray you pardon me.
I see, sir, you are liberal in offers. You taught me first to beg, and now methinks you teach me how a beggar should be answered.
Good sir, this ring was given me by my wife, and when she put it on, she made me vow that I should neither sell nor give, nor lose it.
That excuse serves many men to save their gifts, and if your wife be not a madwoman, and know how well I have deserved this ring, she would not hold out enemy forever for giving it to me.
My lord Bassanio, let him have the ring. Let his deservings and my love withal be valued against your wife's commandment.
Bassanio hesitates.
Well, peace be with you.
Portia and Nerissa exit.
Go, Gratiano, Leonardo, run and overtake him, give him the ring, and bring him, if thou canst, unto Antonio's house. Away, make haste. Come, you and I will thither presently, and in the morning early we will both fly toward Belmont. Come, Antonio.
Bassanio and Antonio exit. Scene 2, the same, a street. Enter Portia and Nerissa.
Inquire the Jew's house out and give him this deed, and let him sign it. We'll away tonight and be a day before our husband's home. This deed will well welcome to Lorenzo.
Enter Gratiano and Leonardo out of breath.
Yes, sir, you are well overtaken. My lord Bassanio, upon more advice, hath sent you here this ring, and doth entreat your company at dinner.
That cannot be. His ring I do accept most thankfully, and so I pray you tell him. Furthermore, I pray you show my youth to old Shylock's house.
That will I do.
Sir, I would speak with you. I'll see if I can get my husband's ring, which I'd make him swear to keep forever.
Thou mayest, I warrant. We shall have an old swearing that they did get their rings away to men, but we'll outface them and outswear them too. Away! Make haste, thou knowest where I will tarry.
Come, good sir, will you show me to this house?
They exit. Act 5, Scene 1, Belmont, Avenue to Portia's house. Enter Lorenzo and Jessica.
The moon shines bright in such a night as this, when the sweet wind did gently kiss the trees, and they did make no noise. In such a night, Troilus, methinks, mounted the Trojan walls and sighed his soul toward the Grecian tents where Cressid lay that night.
In such a night did this beast carefully o'ertook the dew, and saw the lion's shadow Erin, and ran dismayed away.
In such a night did Jessica steal from the wealthy Jew, and with an unthrift love did run from Venice as far as Belmont.
In such a night did young Lorenzo swear he loved her well, stealing her soul with many vows of faith, and ne'er a true one.
In such a night did pretty Jessica, like a little shrew, slander her love, and he forgave it her.
I would outnight you, if nobody come, but hark, say the footing of a man.
Enter Stephano.
Who comes so fast in silence of the night?
A friend.
Friend? What friend? Your name, I pray you, friend.
Stephano is my name, and I bring word my mistress will before the break of day be here at Belmont. She doth stray about by holy crosses, where she kneels and prays for happy wedlock hours.
Well, who comes with her?
None but a holy hermit and her maid. I pray you, is my master yet returned?
He is not, nor have we heard from him. But go in, I pray thee, Jessica, and ceremoniously let us prepare some welcome for the mistress of the house.
Enter Launcelot.
Sola! Sola! Waho! Sola! Sola!
Who calls?
Sola! Did you see Master Lorenzo? Master Lorenzo! Sola! Sola!
Leave the hollowing, man. Here.
Oh, tell him there's a post come from my master with his horn full of good news. My master will be here ere morning.
Lancelot exits.
Sweet soul, let's in. And there expect their coming. And yet no matter, why should we go in? My friend Stephano, signify, I pray you, within the house. Your mistress is at hand, and bring your music forth into the air.
Stephano exits.
How sweet the moonlight sleeps upon this bank. Here, let we sit and listen to the sounds of music, and let the sounds of music creep into our ears. Soft stillness, and the night becomes the touches of sweet harmony. Sit, Jessica. Look how the floor of heaven is thick inlaid with patines of bright gold. There's not the smallest orb which thou beholdst, but in his motion, like an angel sings, still choiring to the young-eyed cherubims. Such harmony is in immortal souls. But whilst this muddy vesture of decay doth grossly close it in, we cannot hear it. I hear you not, Jessica. What sayst thou?
I say I am never merry when I hear sweet music.
The reason is your spirits are attentive. For do but note a wild and wanton herd or race of youthful and unhandled colts, fetching mad bounds, bellowing and neighing loud, which is the hot condition of their blood. If they but hear perchance a trumpet sound, or any air of music touch their ears, you shall perceive them make a mutual stand, their savage eyes turned to a modest gaze by the sweet power of music. Therefore the poet did feign that Orpheus drew trees, stones, and floods, since not so stockish, hard, and full of rage, but music for the time doth change his nature. The man that hath no music in himself, nor is not moved with concord of sweet sounds, is fit for treasons, stratagems, and spoils. The motions of his spirit are as dull as night, and his affections dark as Erebus. Let no such man be trusted. Hark, mark the music.
Enter Portia, Balthazar, and Nerissa.
That light we see is burning in my hall. How far that little candle throws its beams. So shines a good deed in a naughty world.
When the moon shone, we did not see the candle.
So doth the greater glory dim the less. A substitute shines brightly as a king unto the king be by, and then his state empties itself, as doth an inland brook into the main of waters.
That is the voice, for I am much deceived of Portia. Oh, dear lady, welcome home.
We have been praying for our husbands' healths, which speed we hope, the better for her words. Are they returned?
Madam, they are not yet, but there has come a messenger before to signify their coming.
Go in, Nerissa. Give order to my servants that they take no note at all of our being absent hence, nor you, Lorenzo, Jessica, nor you.
A trumpet sounds. The husbands have arrived.
Your husband is at hand. I hear his trumpet. We are no telltales, madam. Fear you not.
This night methinks is but the daylight sick. It looks a little paler. 'Tis a day, such as the day is when the sun is hid.
Enter Bassanio, Antonio, Leonardo, and Gratiano.
We should hold day with the Antipodes, if you would walk in absence of the sun.
Let me give light, but let me not be light. For a light wife doth make a heavy husband, and never be Bassanio so for me. But God sort all, you are welcome home, my lord.
I thank you, madam. Give welcome to my friend. This is the man. This is Antonio, to whom I am so infinitely bound.
Well, you should in all sense be much bound to him, for as I hear, he was much bound for you.
No more than I am well acquitted of.
Sir, you are very welcome in our house. It must appear in other ways than words, therefore I scant this breathing courtesy.
They make their way into the house. Nerissa, however, starts swatting at Gratiano, who has been urgently speaking to her.
By yonder moon, I swear, you do me wrong. In faith, I gave it to the judge's clerk. Would he were guilt that had it, for my part, since you do take it, love so much at heart.
A quarrel? Ho, already, what's the matter?
Oh, about a hoop of gold, a paltry ring that she did give me, whose posy was for all the world like Cutler's poetry upon a knife. Love me and leave me not.
What talk of the posy or the value? You swore to me when I did give it to you that you would wear it till your hour of death, and that it should lie with you in your grave. Thou, not for me, yet for your vehement oath, you should have been respective and have kept it. Gave it to a judge's clerk? No. God's my judge. The clerk will ne'er wear hair on's face that had it.
Now, by this hand, I gave it to a youth, a kind boy, a little scrubbed boy, no higher than thyself, the judge's clerk, a prating boy that begged it as a fee. I could not try for my heart.
You were to blame, I must be plain with you, to part so slightly with your wife's first gift. A thing stuck on with oaths upon your finger, and so riveted with faith into your flesh. I gave my love a ring and made him swear to never part with it. And here he stands. I dare be sworn for him that he would not leave it, nor pluck it from his finger, for the wealth of the world masters. Now in faith, Gratiano, you give your wife too unkind a cause of grief, and twere to me, I should be mad at it.
My lord Bassanio gave his ring away unto the judge that begged it, and indeed deserved it too. And then the boy, his clerk, that took some pains in writing, he begged mine. And neither man nor master would take aught but the 2 rings.
What a ring gave you, my lord? Not that, I hope, which you received of me.
If I could add a lie unto a fault, I would deny it. But you see my finger hath not the ring upon it, it's gone.
Even so void is your false heart of truth. By heaven, I will ne'er come into your bed until I see the ring.
Nor I in yours till I see again.
Sweet Portia, if you did know to whom I gave the ring, if you did know for whom I gave the ring, and would conceive for what I gave the ring, and how unwillingly I left the ring, when naught would be accepted but the ring, you would abate the strength of your displeasure.
If you had known the virtue of the ring, or half her worthiness that gave the ring, or your own honor to contain the ring, you would not then have parted with the ring. What man is there so much unreasonable if you had pleased to have defended it with any terms of zeal, wanted the modesty to urge the thing held as a ceremony? Nerissa teaches me what to believe. I'll die for it, but some woman had the ring.
My honor, madam, by my soul, no woman had it, but a civil doctor, which did refuse 3,000 ducats of me, and begged the ring. The which I did deny him, and suffered him to go displeased away, even he that did uphold the very life of my dear friend. What should I say, sweet lady? I was enforced to send it after him.
Let not that doctor e'er come to my house, since he hath got the jewel that I loved, and that which you did swear to keep for me. I will become as liberal as you. I'll not deny him anything I have. No, not my body, nor my husband's bed. Know him I shall, I am well sure of it. Lie not a night from home, watch me like Argus. If you do not, if I be left alone, now by mine honor, which is yet mine own, I'll have that doctor for my bedfellow.
And I his clerk. Therefore, be well advised how you do leave me to mine own protection.
Well, do you so. Let not me take him, then, for if I do, I'll mar the young clerk's pen.
I am the unhappy subject of these quarrels.
Sir, grieve not you. You are welcome, notwithstanding.
Portia, forgive me this enforced wrong, and in the hearing of these many friends, I swear to thee, even by thine own fair eyes, wherein I see myself.
Mark you but that. In both my eyes he doubly sees himself, in each eye one. Swear by your double self, and there's an oath of credit.
Nay, but hear me. Pardon this fault, and by my soul I swear I never will break an oath with thee.
I once did lend my body for his wealth, which, but for him that had your husband's ring, had quite miscarried. I dare be bound again, my soul upon the forfeit, that your lord will never more break faith advisedly.
Then you shall be his surety. Give him this and bid him keep it better than the other.
Here, Lord Bassanio, swear to keep the ring.
By heaven, it is the same I gave the doctor.
I had it of him. Pardon me, Bassanio, for by this ring the doctor lay with me.
Pardon me, my gentle Gratiano, for the same scrubbed boy, the doctor's clerk, in lieu of this last night, did lie with me.
Why, this is like the mending of highways in summer, where the ways are fair enough. What? Are we cuckolds ere we have deserved it?
Speak not so grossly. You're all amazed. Here is a letter. Read it at your leisure. It comes from Padua, from Bellario. There you shall find that Portia was the doctor. Nerissa there was her clerk. Lorenzo here shall witness I set forth as soon as you, and even but now returned. I've not yet entered my house. Antonio, you are welcome. And I've better news in store for you than you expect. Unseal this letter soon, and there you shall find 3 of your argosies are richly come to harbor suddenly. You shall not know by what strange accident I chanced upon this letter.
I am dumb.
Were you the doctor, and I knew you not?
Were you the clerk that is to make me cuckold?
Aye, but the clerk that never means to do it, unless he live until he be a man.
Oh, sweet doctor, you shall be my bedfellow. When I am absent, then lie with my wife.
Sweet lady, you have given me life and living, for here I read for certain that my ships are safely come to road.
How now, Lorenzo? My clerk hath some good comforts too for you.
Aye, and I'll give them him without a fee. There do I give to you and Jessica from the rich Jew a special deed of gift, after his death of all he dies possessed of.
Ladies, you drop manna in a way of starved people.
Well, it is almost morning, and yet I am sure you are not satisfied of these events at full. Let us go in and charge us thereupon our interrogatories, and we will answer all things faithfully.
Let it be so. The first interrogatory that my Nerissa shall be sworn on is whether till the next night she had rather stay or go to bed now, being 2 hours today. But were the day come, I should wish it were dark, that I were couching with the doctor's clerk. Well, I'll live in fear of no other thing. So sore as keeping safe Nerissa's ring.
And Bassanio exits behind Portia while Gratiano exits behind Nerissa. All others slowly make their way off the stage. And while this story may leave you a bit conflicted and confused, we conclude William Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice.
We did it.
Bravo, bravo.
Well, you all did it.
Bravo, bravo.
I just enjoyed. All right, everybody. Well done. Bravo. Bravi, bravi, bravi. Okay, so for the cast, you guys are amazing. How lucky am I to be working with people like you? Honestly, all of you. Remarkable. Well done. Bravo. I am obsessed in the best way possible. Anyway, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Bob Wolfson. So for those of you who don't know why specifically the Merchant of Venice, I had been playing around with it in my head, and Izzy and I had been talking about this for a while. And then when January 6th happened, like we all know what happened, so I won't obviously go into it, but among the many, 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 many things that happened, what no one was really talking about a lot was the fact that people were wearing, Camp Auschwitz shirts and just very blatant anti-Semitism stuff. And a lot of my friends who were Jewish were really upset by it. So I thought, okay, how can we use this platform to kind of talk about that? And Mr. Bob Wolfson was kind enough to come in, and that's kind of what this talk back is going to be about today. So for those of you that are watching, this is going to be a little bit heavy. If you have to leave, that's absolutely fine. I just want to give that warning beforehand. So Bob, thank you again for joining us. I'm really excited. I'm very delighted to have met you. And I'm going to give this over to you. So please, and everybody, this is an open conversation about everything that pertains to the play. This is also a respectful space. This is a brave space. Like I said, if you have to leave for whatever reason, that's fine. All right? Cool. And it's also Izzy's father.
So thank you very much for having me, and compliments to the Variations Theater Company for all of the great work that you do. The life of this is much bigger than just the reading of the plays that you've done. They live on, as I said earlier, infinitely, and it's a great contribution to art. There are many, many books written about the works of Shakespeare, and certainly many books written about the Merchant of Venice, which originally had the title The Jew of Venice. And there are some fascinating aspects, and I want to just take a few minutes to set out sort of some framing conversation, and then I hope we can have a dialogue, even though on this technology, dialogue among a large number of people is always a challenge. So first of all, I want to talk about the teaching of controversial literature in the first place. There are people who would advocate that we shouldn't read The Merchant of Venice, or we shouldn't read some of the literature that may have racism or bigotry or anti-gay things in them. But the role of art and literature at the end of the day is to raise issues and to force us to confront some of those issues. The difficulty is what we'll get to in a minute, and that is the context, to make sure that we understand the historical context in which it's written, so that we can derive for our own lives some kind of meaning from it. A couple of words about anti-Semitism through time. Anti-Semitism is the oldest bigotry. It's certainly not the only bigotry. And it is certainly many times paired with other kinds of bigotry. People who are anti-Semitic, for example, almost all have misogynistic tendencies. They don't like women, which is fascinating. Men who are anti-Semitic don't like women. It's very strange. But of course, it comes along with anti-Black, anti-gay, anti-Mormon. You could make a long list of the reasons that people can be against another person. What's interesting about The Merchant of Venice in particular is that its largest single historical moment, the time that it was produced the most, was after Hitler's rise to power in Germany, before Germany started World War II. In that period of time where Hitler was trying to change the populace of Germany into active anti-Semitism as opposed to passive anti-Semitism, making the Jew the ultimate other, the Merchant of Venice had a particularly large and very widespread lifespan. We also need to talk about the beliefs of 16th century England, what was going on in 16th century. And of course, we probably ought to talk about Shylock as the central figure and the central theme of what I think is going on in the Merchant of Venice, which is everything isn't always as it appears, that things have a hidden life, that they have other kinds of meanings. So I want to talk for a little bit about the context, and then we'll get into a conversation. First of all, in the year 1290, Jews were expelled from England. At the time of Shakespeare's life, technically, there were no Jews allowed to be living there. So one might ask themselves, how in the world could Shakespeare come up with all of this role playing, even though he set it in Italy, where Jews were thriving? How did he know all of this in order to write it? And what did that mean? Well, in 1492, just shortly before Shakespeare came on the scene, the Jews were expelled from Spain. They were given a choice. Either you become Christian or you get thee out. By the way, the reason historically that happened was Ferdinand and Isabella were broke. The Jews of Spain were wealthy. And by the way, Ferdinand and Isabel also expelled the Moors. Read Northern African blacks. Muslims were also expelled. And read into that some of those Jews became Christians and made their way to England, which meant that Jews were living in England at the time of Shakespeare, but not openly as Jews. They were not living openly as Jews. Also, we need to understand that the church, which at the time was only the Catholic Church, that was the church, Protestantism was not as strong as we have it today, Methodism, all those other forms of Christianity. And the church had a very bad problem. And this came up in Italy. The church, reading the New Testament, believed that it was illegal, immoral, unchristian for anybody to lend money with usury. And when you say usury, read interest. No one could lend any money for interest. And a pope came up with a clever solution to this problem. And that was, since Jews were going to burn in hell anyway for their failure to accept Jesus as the Christ, as the Messiah, Jews could then lend money. And like in every culture, if a minority is given a role in which they can succeed, that cultural subgroup, that racial subgroup, that group tends to succeed in the things that they're permitted. And so Jews at the time became money lenders. We were hated for it, but that's how Jews got into the rise of money lending. Also, we have to understand at the time of Shakespeare, there was a rise in global commerce. And when global commerce rose, there was a great pressure and social change. This was the early beginnings of the industrial age. And it was also the beginning of the decline of the guilds. The guilds were groups of people who were similarly situated, had to be part of a guild in order to be a bricklayer, in order to be a goldsmith, in order to be a silversmith, and in order to be a money lender. You had to be part of that. Also, as part of this context, we've got to remember the Black Death of 1347. This was the plagues, and Jews were almost universally blamed for the Black Death. And also during all of history, there has been a need for the dominant culture to blame the hand of a hidden society, either the hidden society or a hidden group. In many cases, the group was the Jews, or in any culture, the other. This gets into the secret society. Think about the protocols of the elders of Zion. Think about how this whole conspiracy culture that we have now hopefully begun to come out of looked for the hidden hand of who stole the election, who controlled the election, who controls the money, who controls the entire society. This is a very important theme. And then finally, just before we get into the opening of questions, I would like to remind people that Shakespeare commonly wrote in dichotomies. And the Merchant of Venice is probably one of the greatest examples of these dichotomies. So you have the vengeful Jew versus the merciful Christian. You have the Hebrew Bible versus the Christian Bible. You have the pound of flesh versus the drop of Christian blood. You have the quality of mercy versus the vengeance of the Jew. You have the context of the exacting of the law, the legal nature, which, by the way, England was very important in the development of the common law, which is the more merciful kind of law, versus the Italian law, which was the civil law, versus the suffering for money. You have the other theme with the withholding of promises, the ring, the earring, Portia's deception of her the other person's deception of their husbands, and all of that business. So I'm going to start this entire dialogue with three questions. Is The Merchant of Venice as a play anti-Semitic? Did Shakespeare mean it to be about painting the minority Jew in this ugly light? Or is The Merchant of Venice a criticism of Christian anti-Semitism? Is he actually making fun of the way that Christianity used Jews as the scapegoats, and how the Jew tried to use that as a theme? And then sort of finally, what's the role of art and literature in popular culture, in the rise of Hitler in Germany, in the rise of anti-Semitism generally? And can we use a controversial play? Think Inherit the Wind, think Tom Sawyer, think all kinds of literature that people might say, this is too tender for our poor youth to be exposed to? Or do we say, we're going to teach it, but we're going to teach it in a context? We can't just teach it by the reading of it. We have to set it in its proper historical form. Those are all questions that I hope we'll discuss, and I throw the floor open for anybody.
I've got a question. Here, let me. Come on, camera. Hello. Hello.
Hi, Daniele. Daniele Kogan is the artistic director, artistic director. Am I correct? Yes. Artistic director of players on Staten Island. She does a lot of work with variations, and she's incredible with her company as well.
Thank you. Right. So I'm a Jewish artist, and I'm finding that the current environment of art feels very strange, because this seems to be like something people are almost searching for in order to get projects done, and in the same vein, they're not searching for it. So do you have any feedback or maybe information that would help me maneuver or mediate when that happens to me?
Thanks for the question. It's a great question. I do think that it requires a set of skills that you have to practice that are probably different than what you're accustomed to doing in the past. I think the barriers to art and literature today are much higher than they have been in the past, because funding has dropped off. Of course, venues are gone. Your creative use of this venue, which is cheap to do, easy to do, is as I said, I'm very fascinated with this entire effort and think that it's to be applauded. But let's just assume that we all get vaccinated and we go back into other more traditional forms of theater. I do think it is incumbent upon people involved with theater and producing theater to actually think about their audience and to think about what's the purpose of what we're doing. If the purpose is to make an audience comfortable, they can watch cartoons. That doesn't mean it can't be entertaining and fun and light. But at the end of the day, I think the function of good art is to raise some of these questions. So I lean more towards trying to have the voice that says, this is what we are created for. This is why we're here, is to bring up some of these more difficult things. I'll just give you an example. We did The Merchant of Venice in a summer Shakespeare festival here, and the objections were very loud and very difficult for the people who were involved in mounting it. And I got involved with it, and we did this sort of talk back and actually put some contextual materials in the program itself, so that when people were sitting in their seats before the play, they got exposed to some of these questions that are about Merchant of Venice in a historical context versus just sitting and listening to something. I would say, like, let's use Inherit the Wind as an example. You really can't do Inherit the Wind just walking into a theater and seeing it in today and appreciate what it meant when it was written, what it meant historically, what it was referring to. Some people that don't understand the legacy of slavery and have never really questioned that and questioned the racism of a white-controlled legal environment. You just have to do the work that is beyond the work of staging a production.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask a question about what you were saying before about if The Merchant of Venice was anti-Semitic or if it was a critique on, the Christian culture back then. Do you feel like it can be both based upon how you do the play? Because when I saw Merchant of Venice in Shakespeare in the Park with Al Pacino, it was a critique of the Christian culture because of the context in which it was played. And it was played very straight, very serious. But when it's played as a comedy, like how it is many times, that's when those egregious kind of I guess critiques on a people, depending on who you're talking about, will come out. Like, do you agree?
Yeah, I think the historical way to look at it is that before the modern era, Shylock was mostly with a prosthetic nose and with Jewish symbols flowing all around, a yarmulke and tzitzit, and dressed differently, and in every way possible. This guy was as close to the devil as you could possibly make him. That's anti-Semitic.
Right.
So the words themselves that Shakespeare wrote lend themselves to some interpretation that has made more modern versions of Shylock much more nuanced and much more interesting. And the duplicity of Portia and the duplicity of the judge ruling and all of that stuff play a different role than would have been in a more old-fashioned version of The Merchant of Venice. The difficulty that we have is, how does this get done at a community college in a small rural town where there are no Jews and there is nobody to discuss this? And it's sort of like doing Fiddler on the Roof in Scottsbluff, Nebraska. You worry about what they're going to do to the play. So I do think it's, again, especially when you're talking about Shakespeare, literally you could go to a library and find 50 books written about the Merchant of Venice. So if that's true, then these questions are just an affirmation of how smart Shakespeare, or whoever called Shakespeare, was, in that this lives on in history and has a life way beyond the wisdom of the words written on the page.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, wait, we have three hands raised. We have Amanda, Mike, and Max. So Izzy, you can talk, and then we'll do Amanda, Mike, and Max.
No, I was in fourth place. Everyone else go ahead.
All right, Amanda.
I was just gonna say it's related to the same question on. I have two Shakespeare books that I put it, but I have three actually. I have the Norton's comedies and tragedies, and when I always try to read before I do ahead of time before I do Shakespeare, and I went and picked up the tragedy book, and I went through it about 4 times, and I was like, where is that play? What's going on? And I had to remind myself that it was in the comedies book that I have, and then I texted Izzy because I was like, why this is so confusing to me that it's in here. But I also think that there are characteristics of this play that are uncharacteristic of Bill Shakes, and I feel, especially with his maybe I don't know what his intention is, and I don't think we'll ever know, but on top of the maybe naysaying of Christianity, also the way the women sort of control the outcome, and are the tricksters that I don't know, it's like sort of an unsettled ending. It feels very unsettled, unsettling, and most of his plays, especially the comedies, end with a wedding where it's like there's a big bow tied on the end of it and everyone's married and happy and and jokes and that's it, and it just seems off, and I don't know if, I mean, who knows, maybe someone else wrote this one. I don't know, but I just it's so out of character for him, for a lot of the other things that at least I've studied, and I just, every time I read it, I just have so many questions as to why, what his intention was with it, and if it was really him that wrote this one, because there are so many things. I don't know if he was like having a good day or a horrible day, like I don't know, but I do think that it's
well
color from what I'm used to.
I'd argue with you a little bit on a couple of things. First of all, I love the fact that it's in the comedies, not the tragedies. That makes perfect sense to me. But importantly, I do believe that the entire play is a commentary on class and stereotypes. So the women do what they aren't supposed to do. The Jew ends up getting the hard end when he looks like he's victorious. Remember that to the audience, seeing the women put it over on the man would have been hysterical, because at that time, women had no roles, had no power. It was, can you imagine Shakespeare being a feminist in 1500? It's really about this strict, very specific English role assignment. You were born into the role that you played, and that there wasn't ever any getting out of that. You were stuck. It was a culture that was stuck. By the way, in many ways, in England, it still is that way. Where you're born determines what school you go to, therefore what university you go to, therefore what professions you can go to. And so I think Shakespeare was poking fun at society in general in a way that he didn't always do so outlandishly. I do think it's a little bit different than most of his other plays in that way, but I do think the fact that it's considered a comedy is appropriate.
Great. So we'll have Mike.
Yep. So going back to your question of is it an anti-Semitic play or is it critiquing the Christians? I think before doing this reading, I would have been more likely to say that it is a nuanced critique of the Christian norms and how they treated Jews in the time and all that stuff. I still feel like you can that can be played with according to the production, but I think that I'm more leaning towards the former of that it is that he is trying to make some of those anti-Semitic notions in that we don't like Shylock doesn't have the last word. And to me, if the point was, here's these terrible things that they're doing to this man simply because he's who he is, I think that it would have been stronger to make that point, to have some sort of scene where with Shylock after the court. Because really it's just that silly thing with the ring and we pulled one over on you boys. I think that if we got something more to that of him in this shattered state or something like that really would show the wrongness of everything, I think that would uphold the message even more. But we didn't, so that's why I would lean.
Thanks. I would just say that I think what Shakespeare is doing is he's making fun of us all as society. He's poking fun at everybody. Everybody's flawed. And what's interesting, by the way, is that Shakespeare's father himself was convicted 3 times for money lending. So I think Shakespeare probably really didn't know any Jews. So the fact was that he was sort of absorbing from the culture these anti-Semitic vibrations from religion, from culture, from trade, from society, from reading his own, on his own what was happening. The fact that he places it in Venice clearly indicates that he understood that he couldn't place a Jew at Westminster. He couldn't do it in England because it wouldn't resonate with his own audience, but putting it in Venice does. But I think he was making fun of the merchants. I think he was making fun of the moneylenders. I think he was making fun of the Duke. I think he was making fun of men who think they control women and that they're all going to be in, I think he was making fun of a lot of people. I do think the question of is it anti-Semitic or isn't it, went to the grave with Shakespeare or whoever was Shakespeare. We'll never really know the answer to some of these questions. They're rhetorical in nature. And I think what we have to do for ourselves is to look at our own hearts and see what we get out of it. What do we draw out of these lessons that I think we're trying to get universal truths out of any art that we participate in. So let's try and figure out, what does this mean for us today? What does it mean about how easy it is to sway people to the truth or falsity of something, given the last years we've lived through? What does it mean to glom on to untruths without regard for whether they are truthful or not? What is the truth? And boy, these are, Shakespeare was writing about those a whole long time ago.
Yeah, I was going to say almost exactly that because I'm just as smart as you are, Bob. No, but I think he's doing something that comedians always, who have like a social conscience, always have to walk that line in the way like Dave Chappelle or Borat are doing, where it's like I'm not only making fun of the anti-Semitism, but of the way that you find anti-Semitism funny. So like when Launcelot is talking about we're gonna run out of bacon. There's gonna be a massive bacon shortage. It's like so over the. It's like Shakespeare is making fun of his audience themselves without them knowing it, and it's such a dangerous trap because some people, and this is what Chappelle found, is that some people are going to watch a show and laugh along with the racism, not realizing that it's satirizing the racism. And at the risk of putting on a modern interpretation on that, I think that's what's happening. So like, because some of them are just so ridiculous. The scene with Tubal, which I think we can all agree is the crux of the entire play, where Shylock is like, he's more concerned about the money he lost than his daughter, right? And he's like, I'd rather have her dead here with her pockets full of the money than that. Like, nobody is like that. No human being is like that. So like, it plays on that conception. Like, if you believe that is what a Jew is like, what does it say about you? What does it say about your view of humanity as an audience?
Well, in a less communicative world, it was much harder to know what the truth was. And if somebody was telling you a lie, it was much easier to believe. You believe people in authority were truth tellers. You believe the king and the prince and the duke, the judge. They all know better than us poor uneducated commoners. And remember that Shakespeare was primarily performed for the common people, not for the nobility. That's who Shakespeare wrote for. And I do think that the central dilemma that everyone faces is how to push some of these stereotypes that we get in the culture that are actually part of our human nature. So people used to say to me that I should teach, when I teach people, I should teach them that prejudice is bad. And I used to say, when people would say to me, prejudice is bad, you're only off by 1/3. Prejudice is. Everybody has prejudice. There is no human being that can't have prejudice. We're bodily designed to use stereotypes as a shortcut for living life better. The problem is when you apply it to other human beings, it doesn't work so good. But our bodies are wired to keep ourselves safe by knowing what animal is dangerous and what animal isn't, what other humans are threatening and what other humans aren't. Do we go down a dark street or do we go down a lit street? They don't mean that you can't go down a dark street and be safe. It just means we're wired that way. And it's a very common human phenomenon. And we as human beings like to think that it's only people who have hate in their heart and who have gone off that have these negative characteristics. Bad news, folks. We all got it.
All right, well, I guess I'm next. Thank you, Father. And Max, you're fucking hilarious. Yeah, actually, Max, I'm really glad that you mentioned Borat specifically. So my dad and I have actually had this conversation a lot, and I was going to bring it up, actually piggybacking off what Mike was saying about inherently for me. I fully believe, and partially as a Shakespeare fan, I fully believe that this is a social commentary from top to bottom, through and through, wholeheartedly. And actually what Mike said helps to perpetuate the way that I feel about that a little bit more. Because Sauce, what you were saying was like, you sort of wish that there was this other scene that like, Shylock doesn't really get the last word. And so for me, it actually is exacerbated even further that he doesn't get the last word, that basically the end of this play doesn't match the rest of it. Like there's this like tacked on, bizarre romantic comedy, like the two couples thing that happens at the end of the play, and then it just sort of ends. And to me, that is a direct commentary on we've got this villainous Jew through the whole thing, and then there's a court scene and he thinks he's gonna win, and then the rug gets pulled out from under him because of a fucking loophole, and then the Jew is defeated and he's made to convert to Christianity, and then everything's okay, and then the end is happiness. And so for me, like, it's exactly what Max was talking about with the Borat example, which is that this, if you buy into, if you're the kind of person that's conditioned to believe some of this stuff and you see this, then you're like, yeah, it's fucking super anti-Semitic. But if you recognize what's happening, and this is just my opinion of the matter, it's very clear that what's happening is that Shakespeare is just making a huge joke at those types of people.
Right, but it's Borat's throw the Jew down the well, right? Or for those of you that want a Jewish example that was very hard for our community, go back and watch Life is Beautiful. You know, Life is Beautiful is a fantastic film, but when it came out, we had a hell of a time with Holocaust survivors, second generation people who were in the Holocaust who said, oh my God, how can you possibly talk about this sacred, awful chapter of our history? It would be like having a comedy about the slavery. I mean, you know, what's funny about it? Well, that's part of our artistic challenge is, you know, there are funny ways of raising these issues that make you feel very uncomfortable. Dave Chappelle is a great example of that. You know, Lenny Bruce, think of all of these great artists who made us feel intensely uncomfortable, but were raising really important issues that his audience had to struggle with. We actually paid in order to struggle and appreciate it.
One of the things that I think also we have to look at is what was going on at the time, because prior to Merchant of Venice being written, Christopher Marlowe's Jew of Malta was widely successful at that period of time. And the story of Barabbas was much more anti-Semitic and stereotypical tropes and, you know, dealing with the character being guilty of murder and fraud and betrayal and utilizing Old Testament devices where he was ensnared in his own craftiness and Shylock was not that. And but what he did with Shylock was make it sympathetic to his audiences by taking a pound of flesh from a Christian, which would just not be acceptable in that society. So I think that he was trying to utilize it as a commentary, but did not go as far as Marlowe had with the anti-Semitism, because I think that society it was already baked in the cake, and he knew that. So he was able to introduce love stories that played to other portions of his audience, and he was also able to introduce some comedic elements like disguises, which also played to other elements of his audience. So I think he was, rather than sitting down and looking to write a piece that was specifically focused on anti-Semitism, I think he was utilizing it as a vehicle towards commercial success, which is what is shocking when you think of people utilizing very hurtful subject matter as a means for success. And I think we've seen that through history time and time again, where people take sensitive subject matter just simply because they know it sells.
Two issues. One is, as I said before, 1290, Jews were expelled from England. So there was Jewish presence in England for many, many, many centuries. It's just for a couple hundred years there hadn't supposedly been any in Shakespeare's time. But there are scholars who believe that this play was written in direct response to Marlowe, that they were competitors and they were writing at the same time, and this was his answer. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but there's certainly literary scholars who believe exactly what you're saying, and that was his way of shaping an answer to this play that was, as you said, commercially extraordinarily successful, which ought to give you an idea of the things that were percolating in the culture at the time. That Marlowe's play was so popular, sold out audiences for a long run, ought to tell you something about that problem. And by the way, anti-Semitism remains a problem in England till this day. So, you know, and just as a note, in this country too.
One of the beautiful things about Shakespeare, and you have to look at Merchant of Venice for me within the context of the time, is that him trying to write it as fully real, actualized critique of anti-Semitism overtly would not have been accepted within the time. But you can, for me, I can see this subtlety, because Shakespeare is very good at putting unpopular opinions out in the way that he writes certain speeches and fits them in to other things so that people walk away from it and then come back and the words are still ringing in your ears, because I don't think anyone who's seen Merchant doesn't have "if you prick us, do we not bleed" in their soul when they leave the theater. It's one of the only Shakespearean speeches that defends an entire race and racial group. Usually when you're dealing with Shakespeare's characters, they're talking about, you know, just themselves individually. And in Merchant, he has one moment of time, is golden, where he allows this character to voice how much the prejudice hurts and how misunderstood they are and how like everyone else they are. They're not a monster. They're not something different. They're not a subspecies. This is a human being. Don't you see that we're human? And we've learned to react to you by the way that you treat us. So that moment there in Merchant is what makes it, for me, Shakespeare's commentary about anti-Semitism and about prejudice in general of any groups.
I guess I agree with the general tenor of what you have to say. The only thing I would like to just sort of point out is that Jews are not a race. We come in all...
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. But by the way, if I were to make a list of the things that are anti-Semitic tropes that we've all inherited, that's one of them, is that Jews are a group. By the way, the Nazis used that very well. And in case you didn't know, the Nazis got it from America, because America was the home of eugenics, which was the idea that you're just born the way you are. And that includes your mental capacity, your societal capacity. And there's a famous Supreme Court case that talks about the ability of the United States to sterilize people that are either disabled or intellectually challenged, because they don't want 3 generations of imbeciles to be born into our culture. And the Nazis just did a better job at eugenics than we did, and they made it an industry. So, but the entire notion of race is a very modern, starting in about the late 18th century, a pseudo-scientific idea of dividing humanity into identifiable groups. I got my second shot today for COVID. Thank you very much. And in the survey that they ask you to identify yourself. When I was in 5th grade, I was born in 1952. When I was in 5th grade, they sent us home with a little yellow card. And we actually went home for lunch in 5th grade. And I went home, and on the card, all of us Jewish kids got together and asked, how are we supposed to answer this question? And I'm going to ask you to guess what was the question? What group do you belong to? What was the first group?
White.
You would think white, right? Oh no, the first group was Caucasoid. Second group, what we would say today, would be black. It wasn't black, it was Negroid. Third would be Oriental or Chinese or Pacific Islander. What do you think that was? Mongoloid. And so that was in my 5th grade class, for God's sakes. You know, we've come a long way, but we have a long way to go because these themes are difficult to challenge out of the culture. Do any anti-racism work and you'll find very quickly that this stuff is very hard to, by the way, in ourselves, we carry this baggage with us. I used to say we carry a trunk that's attached to our ankles, and the trunk is filled with all of your past experiences that you as an adult have to unpack. We have to open the box and look in, and I'm no different than any of us. We all have that work to do, and it's a work that won't end until the day you die. So I hope we all participate in that work.
One of the things that I wanted to talk about, not necessarily Shakespeare, but something else you mentioned about the role of art in changing society's ideal. And when you said you have that box, you have to open it and you have to look in it. The box cannot be just labeled, or you skip the box because you know what that label is. You have to open it, you have to pull that stuff out, you have to have a discussion about it. And one of the things I find troubling about now is we're so busy trying to be liberal and being inclusive that we're actually being more discriminatory. Because if you don't have the chance to discuss your ideal about someone else and maybe correct the right or correct the wrong, then you're just practicing the same thing but putting a nicer label on it.
Thank you,
If
Bob.
I can't watch Dr. Seuss and explain to a child why this is wrong, what am I doing? Do I eliminate Dr. Seuss? Do I eliminate Merchants of Venice? Do I eliminate Roots, for God's sakes? Because we don't want to face ourselves. And if we can't face ourselves, we can't change ourselves. You can't change anything unless you acknowledge what it is. And then with this play, particularly for me, I never realized how anti-Semitic it was until I'm in the play. And is that my ignorance, or is it that's the way the play had been presented to me in the past? If you have not brought this up, I probably might have thought the same thing.
No,
having a discussion is always a good thing to discuss. It may be uncomfortable, but we need to discuss it, and it needs to be there to discuss.
Yeah. So let me put it in a modern context, and what you said, and I firmly believe it. So I am a left of center, democratic leaning with a big D and a small d, a human being, and I've been in this business for a long time. And what you raise is that, and I urge all of the people on the call who are from dominant white culture to do this, and to think about what it might feel like if you were not in the dominant culture, and the words and the attitudes and the unpacking that you have to do. One of the most dangerous things that we have in the current environment is how many people think they're woke. And folks, let me tell you something. If you're the one who tells a minority person that you're woke, you ain't woke yet. You get woke by the way you behave and by what you say and by how willing you are to talk about tough issues. You aren't woke because you know the word. And there is work to be done, and work that we all have to do in order to create spaces where we can have these conversations that are honest and authentic, and art has a way of making us have access to that, to have the willingness to be more risky. And man, if we ever need it more than we've needed it, it's now. Part of the reason we're living through this is that the dominant white culture is beginning to realize that in a very few years, we're going to have a minority-majority country. We already have a majority-minority country in Texas, in Florida, in California. It's coming everywhere. And whether you like that or not, that means there are going to be more minority people that are in positions of power, in positions of politics, in positions of art. And that is just the way the world is going. And if we're at all uncomfortable with that, if we can't deal with that, then we all have work to do. And by the way, I include myself in this. I'm probably I've spent the last 30 years dealing with this issue. And I acknowledge to myself, I can go places and do things where I find myself having physical reactions to the events that I'm experiencing that have nothing to do with how I intellectually feel about the issues. And my wife, who is sitting next to me, and I like to tell this story. We were in New Orleans once, and we went to a movie theater with a particularly violent movie. And we were the only white people in the theater. New Orleans is a predominantly Black community. And we were in a completely Black environment. And if you've never been in that kind of environment and in a theater where particularly the movie is sort of violent and there's a white-Black dichotomy, and sometimes the Black people in the movie are superior in force than the white people, people in the audience were going crazy. Kill that! I mean, they were screaming at the movie theater, and we felt very uncomfortable, and we left the theater. I didn't feel safe. My wife and I didn't feel comfortable. You know, that's my own. That's my own personal baggage. And if you're not willing to talk to somebody and expose some of the ideas that you still carry in that baggage, don't tell me how evolved you are. Talk to me about your own shit, because we all have it. Thank you for bringing it up. I appreciate it.
I love this conversation, just off the cuff. Love it. Absolutely love it. Just a little background on me real fast. I left theater and went to school for social work. And I lived in New York City working on Broadway, worked with people, lived with people in all shapes, sizes, colors, whatever, nationalities, everything. I never realized how much internal bias I had, or how much I did not know until I went to social work school, because that's what you're taught. You're taught to look at it. You're taught to look at all of the ridiculousness that society has created to create all these dichotomies of what is correct, what is right, what is power, and all of that. And it all comes down to how we as the people choose to look at it. And I think I'm trying to figure out a way to make research out of theater and how to use theater as the vehicle for systematic change. And that's kind of what this conversation is doing right now, which I love. It's giving me a lot of ideas. And I think with this play, I haven't read it in a long time. I read it in middle school. I was in it in middle school. I don't remember what role I played, but I was in it in middle school. And I wish that we would have had a discussion like this when we did it, because it's when we're kids, it's when we have the minds and the ability to have that wonder and not as many biases as we do when we get older, to question things and give us the way to start to question what we see, what we think, how we feel about something. And this play is such a great start to that. And I applaud Izzy and Variations for bringing this together, and you, Mr. Wolfson, because like this is incredible. I absolutely love it. I know personally that all of what is being said is uncomfortable. It's always going to be, especially because I'm white, especially because I am of the dominant culture. I do have the intersectionality of being a woman, which brings another thing to it. But I will never understand where King is coming from. I will never understand where you're coming from. I'll never understand fully where the other people are coming from, because I don't have that experience. But I can sit in that Black theater and be super uncomfortable the entire time and try to hope that like I'm learning something while I'm sitting there. I can sit in a conversation like this one and be uncomfortable and learn something and make a mistake and be able to change it.
A couple of things. One, if you personally have some unpacking to do, I would encourage you to find an environment that is safe, but where you can put yourself in a minority position, where you're not in a dominant culture. Go to a black church, go play basketball where you're the only white person. Find a way, and then imagine for a moment what it must feel like for people who are not of the dominant culture when they are in an environment of where they're an executive in a board of people or a senior suite where they're the only person of color or where the only woman or all of those things. Let's try and get out of those things. A couple personal things. My undergraduate degree is in social work. And then I became a lawyer. And then I became a lawyer involved with civil rights issues and discrimination. And then I went to work for 29 years for the Anti-Defamation League, actually working in the world of bigotry and bias and fighting bad people and tracking anti-Semites and all of that kind of work. Anti-racism, all that business. I have a friend in Omaha who is a social worker. She's a psychologist. I think she's a doctor in psychology, but there are people involved with it in social work that has a theater company called Respect. And they've written theatrical pieces to do in middle schools and high schools about date rape, about sexual assault, about bigotry, about people with disabilities or differing abilities. They do these productions, and then they sit down and the actors do a speak back with the actors. And then I'd also, if I'm sure most of you will nod in awareness, Bayou's work on the theater of the oppressed is some really fantastic work that has been done. It's mostly out of Brazil, but it's in the United States. It's very important, cutting edge, more from a Marxist philosophy than I would care for, but it gives you sort of an idea of how theater can confront power in ways that are very interesting. And, we've all experienced it and we can all do it, but I'm a big believer in the power of theater.
Am I up? Okay.
It's respectgroupinc.com.
To kind of, piggyback and touch upon a lot of things that have just been said, I think one of the other things that we need to keep in mind as artists is that we have to be aware of where we're receiving these lessons, and who is teaching them to us and from what narrative and what point of view. I am a white presenting male. I am Hispanic. I will never be cast as such. But so I have a privilege that works for and against me. And it's hurtful. You look at 50% of my family and they would be cast in wonderful shows that I'll never get an opportunity to do. And I've spent a lot of time with my Hispanic family in those communities. I used to spend every summer in Costa Rica. And I did theater in Costa Rica as a child. And then when I got into the professional world, for the last 10 years, I've been working in my minority majority district as a lighting design consultant and working with those communities. And a lot of things that I have learned about social awareness has been in positions where I am not, where I am a minority, where I am in a position where I don't present the same way as others, and I'm not learning from a position of you're bad, you're the oppressor. I'm learning from a position of come be a part of what we do. It's much more welcoming that way.
Well, there is great power just from your story. There is great power in identity. And identity is a little bit of problematic thing for some people, because identity is whatever you choose it to be. When you want to be a male, you can be, if that's what you want to be, you can be a male. When you want to be Hispanic and have that as an identity, you can choose it or not choose it. When you want to pass in dominant culture, you can do it or not do it. And it's nobody else's business to put upon you their view of your identity. You own your identity. I get to choose when I want to be a husband or a father or a friend or a man or a lawyer, or I'm the one who gets to choose that. I'll tell you all my favorite story about this. It's slightly long, but I'll try and make it quick and short. I did a training once for 26 high school teachers, school teachers. And one of the women in the group was a white woman sitting next to an African-American woman. And the white woman raised her hand and said, well, this is my partner here. We've been teaching, co-teaching in kindergarten for the last 20 years. We've been in the same classroom for 20 years. And I can tell you honestly, when I see her, I don't see a person of color. And I just froze. So I'm in front of a huge audience. And this is a moment where I'm the trainer. And I turned around and I walked straight to the African-American woman. I looked her in the eye and I said, would you mind terribly if I spoke for you? And she looked up at me with this quizzical look and she said, sure. So I walked over to her 20-year partner and I said, I know you mean this out of a good heart, but as your friend, I have to tell you that you don't get to choose when my blackness is important to me. That's mine. I own that. And oh, by the way, if you don't see me as a person of color, you don't see me at all. You don't see me. Now that ended that, and we went on to the next thing. And at the end of the time that I was training, everybody left the room and the African-American woman stayed back. And she came up to me and began to weep. She was crying, weeping. And she took my hand and she said, in 27 years of teaching in this school district, you're the first white person who's ever defended me. In 27 years, no one had ever come to this human being's defense when these kinds of innocent but hurtful things happened. And it clearly wasn't the first time it had happened. Her partner didn't mean anything by it, but it was a big dig, a big wound, a big ouch for that person. And I recognized it and affirmed it. We all have work to do, but we've got to do it together. Can't leave anybody out. Thank you for sharing about your identity. I hope you become more comfortable sharing with people when and where these identities mean something to you, because that will enrich their experience of your life
and his own,
and your own.
His.
Please feel more willing to share that. I think you'll find lots of people who have hidden parts of their identity that they don't always share also. So thank you for sharing it.
And King had their hand up.
Oh no, I think I was trying to put my hand down and didn't realize I put it back up again. I think I pressed it twice, but I didn't have anything else. I had another, I didn't have any more questions. I just think.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that. My fault.
Yeah, no, it's no problem. No problem. You know, I just appreciate this conversation. I think we also appreciate the conversation. And it's interesting. And another part of Shakespeare, I gotta pay more attention to, because I thought it was very interesting at the end, the way he changed the whole narrative of the play. And I wonder, in the back of my head, did somebody say something to him that he would have to change it for his audience? You know, because oftentimes we are influenced by other people. We make decisions based on what other people tell us. So did he change the narrative at the end? Because it is a little bit disjointed, as Izzy said, it's very disjointed. And who knows?
But if you want to understand how powerful audience is and being accepted in audience, look at the history of Othello. He was clearly a Moor. He didn't look like me. He may not have been African in appearance, but he was certainly a dark-skinned person. That's what Moors were. It's very interesting that all of these issues get played into the history of theater and the history of what was acceptable in art. There are places and times Othello has been produced where you couldn't have a person of color play. You couldn't. It wasn't safe. Racism and bigotry and theater and art and literature all kind of mix into the mud. Anybody else?
Kelly McCue had a question or a comment.
Please.
Yes. So I just wanted to thank you so much, Bob, first of all, because this whole conversation has been what it needed to be, like being uncomfortable and in the right amount, you know, the way that we need to be. And I think, like, honestly, there's been a lot said that kind of speaks for how I feel. I wanted to say that for me, growing up, I was very lucky. You know, I was in an idyllic childhood, you know, white, and like I had such a hard time acknowledging that privilege for a long time because I felt guilt. But then I had this light bulb moment when I took this course. So I have a year ago, I took a course and it really changed my world. And it's called Lead, Let's Empower, Advocate, and Do. And they seek to spread awareness about mental illness and mental health. But they also wanted to talk a lot about racism and unpacking that in a healthy way, as well as identity, LGBTQIA plus community. I mean, trauma, all of these things that we want to be able to talk about in a healthy way. And 9 times out of 10, people are well-meaning, but they just don't know how to approach it. And on top of it all, it's so uncomfortable. So one thing that was really cool that you said, again, like acknowledging that statement, you know, that man said to his wife, like he had good intentions, but he had no idea how hurtful it was. And on the same account, I realized that every time I don't acknowledge my privilege to someone who's trying to have a conversation with me about how they feel, you know, alone and frustrated because of their population, their marginalized population, I'm actually doing them a disservice, and it's okay for me to do that. And that was a light bulb for me, and that I learned from that course. So I've been doing this thing now where I kind of just like, if I'm having one of those conversations with a friend of color or anyone who feels that they're ostracized in any way, I own up to it. I'm like, okay, so I recognize that I have this privilege and that privilege. How can I help you? And when you give it to them, you're like, oh my God, you know, all of a sudden you're listening to them and you're hearing them. You're not talking for fear of offending them. You're just listening to what they have to say.
I don't need to, I want to respond to you, but I want to just sort of give a warning. I think it's about time to sort of wind this up. And so this is a good place to wind up. So any of you, almost all of us, have had experiences where we felt like the other. There is a special characteristic about feeling the other when it has a bigger social context, like race and gender and all LGBTQIA, all of these other things. But almost every human being has felt at one time or another as the other. Because we as human beings are infinitely able to make other people feel like the other. And what I would like to say is that for those of us that have lived long periods of time as the other, minorities, religious minorities, victims of traditional discrimination, I'm a godly person, so I think God gave all of us who have lived in that experience an extra special gift. And I call that extra special gift a special radar. And the radar, you can't see it, it's invisible. It sits on the top of my head. And that radar is going all the time. I can't turn it off. And the radar works in this way. If you want to ask me any question and you do it because you really want to know the answer and you do it with a good heart, I will engage with you on anything. If you ask me a question and it's aggressive or it's accusatory or it carries baggage of racism or bigotry or anti-Semitism, I will react in a completely different way because I have that radar. So when you're beginning to have these conversations with people that are difficult, if you do it with an open heart, trust me, you will be greeted with an open heart. You will not be spurned. You will be greeted with an open heart. So as a parting note, and then I'll let the Variations Theater Company decide what else to do, I'd like to give you all a small gift. If you have a piece of paper and a pencil, please write this down. bob@bobwolfsonconsulting.com. And if you have any questions or you want to engage with me on a further conversation about this, or just questions that you had that you were not willing to risk in this environment asking, as long as you come at me with the right kind of heart, I will welcome any question that you bring. And thank you very much for the opportunity. A particular shout out to everybody involved in the organization of this, and a particular shout out to my dear son, Izzy. I love you very much.
You too, Pops.
Love it.
And Sibby in the background there.
Yeah, we need, yeah, Sibby!
Hi, Miss Wilson. Miss Wolfson.